Oh, man, you had me worried there for a second, Chris. Nah, I'm just kidding. People, we're back. This is it. The finale, the last episode of Mando Watch for the last episode of The Mandalorian Season 2. I just wanted to break that ice real quick because, good God, we have a lot to talk about. Pat, I have no idea how you're going to react. I don't know whether you're going to say that this is fan service or whether this was the finale the show deserved. Maybe it's both. I don't know. Chris, I know you and I are both coming our pants during this entire episode. There's absolutely no way that we couldn't be.
I'm definitely not doing that on air for the record. So just throwing it out there.
This episode was insane. Like this was an incredible episode to end the season on. It was absolutely insane. We've got a stacked panel tonight. It's gonna be nuts. How are you guys doing?
Yeah. Dude, I'm riding this high, man. Like this show, there's few things that I've seen sort of change this dramatically in such a short amount of time. The only other example I have, and I'm sorry, Dom, this kind of goes past your interior wall here, but Pat, the Cleveland Browns are the only thing I've seen change this fast in this short amount of time. I mean, to go from 3 years ago to being a nothing BS team to now Super Bowl contenders for the most part, about to clinch the #1 seed in their division. Like, this is a turnaround of epic proportions, and yeah, I can't wait to get into it. Because season one, just to throw that in.
I definitely like the football reference there, Christian. But Dom, I'll say your reference was a little too much information.
Oh,
so,
man.
But anyway,
that's fine.
This episode definitely tried to pull out all the stops, and without any proper setup in the penultimate episode, did it succeed? We're about to talk about it and find out.
Yeah, that's a big difference. This was not real. This was unlike last season, which definitely felt like everything was set up in the previous episode. After a couple episodes of just kind of drifting around, this episode, for once, actually felt like the perfect capitulation of everything that the season had building to, with the exception of the spider episode, which is ironic considering the fact that this episode is directed by the guy who did the spider episode. So,
and I love Pat's choice of words where he says "tried to." That's not, painting the picture of where he stands on this episode or not.
Not at all.
Not at all. But Dom, before we bring our guest in, man, tell him about what I got up on the screen right now.
Tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a little bit of a promo for that. The live script read for Star Wars Episode 9, Duel of the Fates, which was originally supposed to be Star Wars, which was unfortunately transformed into Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. The three of us will be there. A couple of the people that you see on this panel will be there tomorrow. We're going to have a lot of guests on. It's going to be a full-length script read, so people be ready for the long haul. It's going to be nuts.
See you there. And speaking of a lot of guests, Dom, shall we bring in the crew?
Yes, let's bring them in.
Cool. First and foremost, everyone, welcome back to the show. Second time on the channel, Ian. What's going on, Ian, man? Ian Hamilton.
You're muted. Unmute yourself.
I was trying to do justice and make sure I didn't make any noise during your intro, and that's what happens. Guys, thanks for having me. Very exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. So thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, to say the least. All right.
Ian, you're a great guest. That's why we love having you, man. We appreciate that mute. It means a lot to us. So don't sweat it, brother.
You make me blush.
Moving on next, man. You guys have seen him a lot. You know him. We love him. Please welcome back to the channel yet again, AJ of AJ Reacts 2. What's going on, man?
What's going on, you guys? I'm pumped to be here. Thank you for having me once again on the channel. And this is going to be a very interesting conversation and discussion, but I'm ready for it.
Yeah, dude. Likewise, man. And of course, last but not least, I've been doing a weekly Mandalorian recap show on his channel every Monday night, and we are so thrilled to have him here for the first time tonight. Everyone, please welcome Matt of Basic Entertainment to the channel. What's going on, Matt?
What's going on?
Can you see me? I'm good. On my end right now is a bit messy, but I am so blessed to be here, guys. Cannot wait to talk about some Mando.
Yeah, man, you're coming in perfectly clear, so don't stress it at all. We're just here to get into all crazy things Star Wars. So, Dom, man, what's on the plate first?
Yeah, so normally we break this show down into 4 sections. We have a recap section, our positives and negatives, our MVP, and our how this relates to the overall Star Wars universe section. But again, this is a little bit of a longer episode. This is a little bit of a kind of more fun-filled episode. This is, again, we have a lot to talk about, just not only for this episode, but obviously where the future of this episode goes within both this show and the greater overall Star Wars canon. That, of course, famously, we cannot talk about the show show without talking about the major Disney announcement at the Disney Investor Day, in which 18 new Star Wars shows were announced. I don't know if that's the actual number, but it certainly feels like it. People, we're going to be inundated with Star Wars content for the next 20 years or so brace yourselves. Stranger Boys in the chat, what's going on? He's holding up 2 of these signs. I still don't know what those signs are actually called. But before we actually got into the recap, I just wanted to go around real quick, because again, we have 3 guests on tonight. So far, I believe we've only had 2 other guests on for the majority of this entire run. So I just want to go around. I just want to get from our 3 guests specifically, because people, Chris, Pat, and I have been here for these last 8 weeks. You know our thoughts on the show overall. That's not going to be any surprise. I want to hear the 3 new guys who haven't had a chance to talk on this channel yet, starting with Matt from Basic Entertainment. You've been hosting a show on your own channel every Monday night talking about this show. What are your thoughts so far on this season overall? What do you think it's done for Star Wars so far, and what do you think it could do for Star Wars for the future?
I think it turned me into a hater and it turned me into a lover.
Oh, wow.
Just complete 180 from last year, December. And yeah, I'm just, dude, this is what everything I need and more. It just, oh man.
Wow, definitely sounds like Star Wars repaired some bonds that you were in desperate need of reparation for. AJ, my man, like, what were your thoughts on season 1 and what it did for Disney Plus? What are your thoughts on this season? What could go in for the future? Like, talk to me, man.
I really enjoyed season 1, and I enjoyed season 2 as a whole more than season 1. I think it did a lot of things that were a lot smarter, a lot more clever. But I do have some qualms about the season, so we'll get into those a little bit later. But
right.
not 100% positive.
I get it.
AJ knows I can always complain.
Of course, no, it usually is. Like I said, we wouldn't have people on here if it was just all positives and negatives. It doesn't make for any fun if everything is just all positive. Then we sound like the rest of the internet. We sound really boring. Ian, my main man, my guy, we've been talking throughout all of these last 8 weeks. I've been trying to get you on. We finally got you on for the finale. You're also going to be on with us tomorrow for the Strike to the Screenplay read. Ian, what are your thoughts? Make your thoughts clear for the people on the internet on the Mandalorian season 2 so far, how it's compared to the last season, what it could spell, you think, for the future of the Star Wars in our lives.
Yeah. So bouncing somewhat off of what AJ said, I loved season 1. I thought it was an awesome introductory season, getting to know Mando and then, learning his name at the end, and really making that connection. And I thought season 2 was leagues more adventurous. I thought it was more courageous. I thought Filoni and Favreau as a whole took, much larger leaps. I loved it. I thought it related to the Star Wars universe and started to come around as a whole. Certainly there are some things that we can pick apart about it, but 2 thumbs up for me. Pedro Pascal, huge fan, huge Narcos fan going into it. So I love my boy Pedro Pascal. I think he's doing a great job. I just hope he's okay. His back's a little sore from carrying the whole.
I was wondering if it was going to be you or somebody else that brought up that meme. It's funny because I saw the one with Pedro Pascal, and then I think I sent Chris the one last week with or I sent you the one that said Jon Favreau. So either way, it's kind of pretty loose when it comes to who it actually is doing all the work there. But real quick shout out to Royish Good Looks who commented, "What a finale! This is the way I'd expect nothing else from Roy." And it's good to see that StreamYard has fixed its comment section. So people,
yeah, definitely. And if you guys are in the chat, let us know what you thought about the finale this season so far. We'll try our best to read them throughout the course of the conversation.
Yeah. Before I get into it, I just wanted to say that Pedro Pascal, I give him extra props because unlike last season where he only showed up to set for the one day in order to film the scene where the droid took off his helmet, this season he was on for a full 2 straight days. My guy, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Take a step out of the voiceover booth from, the Narco set and actually come down to Manhattan Beach and shoot the rest of your scenes. I was so beyond impressed because I thought that we were getting a little bit teased last week. I'm like, wait a minute. He's only taking off his helmet for this amount of bit. Is this it? Was this all that they could get Pedro for? And then it turned out he took off his helmet and I'm like, oh, I think they reworked his contract. I think we're actually finally get to see him take that helmet off a little bit more. Say goodbye to the Judge Dreddedness of it all. But I just wanted to say, Pedro, we love you and everything you've done, even if this was only your second day on set. So people, shall we get into it?
I think there's never been a better time, Dom.
So I'm going to go through the recap real quick because there's both a lot and not a lot to talk about. So this episode, the finale, chapter 16, oh my God, I actually just forgot the title. Hold on. me look this up.
The rescue.
It's the rescue.
The rescue. That's it.
It's pretty on the
Everyone on the panel to the rescue. Thanks,
Wow.
guys.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I don't know what it is. I just totally blanked there. All right, let's start that over. Chapter 18, The Rescue, the finale of season 2, episode 16 overall, written by Jon Favreau, directed by, I still can't believe it. That is the ultimate side of Favreau's trollishness. Directed by Peyton Reed, the director of the Spider episode, Pat's favorite episode, and no one else's favorite episode. I still have no idea how. So the episode begins again. It's a good old-fashioned Western showdown overall. They're chasing an Imperial ship, and they land on a planet. They chased an Imperial ship, and they captured the Kamino and cloner, Dr. Pershing, portrayed by Omid Abtahi. Afterwards, Mando and Boba Fett arrive on a planet in order to recruit Bo-Katan and Sasha Banks. I do not ask me to remember the name of that story of the name of the last couple of weeks, because that was 5 weeks ago, and I've done so much work since then. It's amazing my brain is still functioning. Basically, after a little quick rustle and tussle between Boba and Sasha Banks, he officially recruits the two of them in order to help them penetrate Moff Gideon's ship. And of course, what would this show be without one last little deal where he says, hey, you help me get into the ship and you get your Darksaber back. And now you'll get to, liberate your planet again for the 15th time in this overall franchise. Seriously, what is up with Mandalore? Those guys are all warriors and they keep getting conquered over and over and over again. I still have no idea as to how. I'm like, how many times are they going to dupe us? They understand that most of these people will watch the animated shows. Anyways, that's it. Tangent over. But, so the rest of this show is the absolute action smash and grab that you would expect it to be. It takes all of the previous smash and grabs and makes them look like cake. Again, they take their hijacked Imperial ship, and with help from Dr. Pershing, the 5 of them manage to make it look like Boba Fett is chasing them before they infiltrate the ship. Unfortunately, Boba cuts and run early. He's like, all right, I did my due diligence. Did you guys need somebody to pilot Slave One? And besides, the Empire recognizes me too well, so I'm going to make sure that you guys get into the ship, and then I'm out. And he pieces out once they crash inside, and they come out, and they freaking demolish it. Oh, my God. They decimate every single person on this crew. Fennec, Kara, Bo-Katan, and Sasha Banks demolish every single stormtrooper and Imperial officer on that entire goddamn ship while Mando sneaks through. But unfortunately, he passes some of Moff Gideon's dark troopers overall, which are revealed, of course, to be droids. And again, it's funny because we've kind of taken a little bit of liberties when it comes to like Ludwig Göransson's score this entire season, but the way that he emulates, like Ludwig has always been very, very subtle about replicating certain previous scores, and oh man, he did his damnedest with paying homage to Terminator in that sequence, because goddamn those droids. What's it called? So Mando successfully manages to take the one down by stabbing it with the Beskar spear, and then sends the others through the airlock out into space. He manages to make it to Baby Yoda's cell. Sorry, Grogu's cell. Look at me doing that. While the other 4 reach the bridge and decimate everyone on the bridge. He duels Moff Gideon with the Darksaber after they have a quick exchange, saying, "Hey, what's it called? I just want the kid. I don't want anything to do with you or your struggle or Mandalore or anything." But Moff Gideon doesn't fall for it. He still wants the kid, doing some of his good old Giancarlo Esposito trickery. But Mando takes him down surprisingly well, kind of. I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit shocked with how quick it took him to take him down. But then again, I shouldn't, because we got to remember Moff Gideon's empire. And those guys, they're all weasels at the end of the day. So he takes out Moff Gideon, brings him to the bridge. And it seems like everything's hunky-dory until Moff Gideon has to open his mouth and be like, oh, she wants the Darksaber, but it's yours now because you won it from me. And now, if she wants it, she's going to have to win it from you in combat. But before they get a chance to do that, the Dark Troopers are back. And they're full, because of course they have rocket boots. So what is there to actually stop them? Like, if space won't stop them, what could possibly stop them until they look out the window? And people, I cannot emphasize this enough. At this point right now, if you have not watched this episode yet, get out. Just get out. I'm giving you fair warning right now. Because guess what? Yeah. Everybody who's on social media has already been spoiled by this. But I'm giving you guys fair warning. Watch the episode, then get out.
Yeah, because I don't want to reveal to them that, Qui-Gon Jinn returns as he comes in to save the day. I don't want to spoil that for anyone.
Luke Skywalker's back. It's official.
I told you to train the boy.
Luke Skywalker's back. It's official. They've been hinting at it throughout this entire season. Ahsoka told us that Grogu would reach out. I was already pleasantly surprised and happy that we got one Jedi this season. Never in a million years did I think that we were going to get the man himself, at least the man at this time. And he's used exactly like he should be used, as a Deus Ex Machina. And absolutely, they replicate what made that Vader moment in Rogue One so magical. And god damn, if that wasn't the way, literally, this is the way to end this goddamn season and this goddamn episode, because he mows through those droids in a way that would make his daddy proud with how his daddy sliced through those rebels all those years before. Like, truly, the circle is complete at this point. I think it is safe to say Luke Skywalker himself done in some absolutely incredible de-aging work from Lucasfilm. Oh my God, just every single time I think that there's no way they can continue to do well with this de-aging. I really thought they were going to go with the recasting with Sebastian Stan, because I didn't think, because I'm like, look, Mark Hamill does not have the body type at this point to pull this off. And I'm going to be honest, they probably used a body double like they did for the Mandalorian for the entire season. But either way, just for that moment, obviously we'll see when I go back to rewatch the episode. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of people's thoughts on it going forward. But just in that moment, it was incredible. And Luke does what Ahsoka couldn't, which is saying, hey, he's got to come with us, because if his abilities go unchecked, then, he will potentially become a force for destruction. And so Mando does the unthinkable. Not only does he say goodbye to Grogu, he takes off his helmet to do so. This is the way indeed, people. But of course, before the episode ends, we get a little quick shout out from R2 before the credits roll, and that's not all. But wait, there's more. As if that wasn't enough.
Well, hang on. That's another segment for later on in the show.
Oh, is the post-credit scene not being counted in the overall episode recap? I mean, it's part of the episode. It's part of the episode. I disagree. I think we should do it here. It is part of the episode.
No. Let's get into this episode, because we got another segment for it. That could be a half-hour conversation right there.
Okay. All right.
That right there itself could be a half-hour conversation.
Chris is ambiguous before the actual podcast go on, but all right. So we're not counting the post-credit scene yet.
Let's just close the book on the recap and move on.
Yeah, for right now.
I think that sounds about right. And by the way, guys, for the record, I'm literally convinced R2D2 was just there to run the press gambit for the new droid show.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Say it on the goddamn
Which ironic, considering that the new droid show is going to be animated. So
as much as I love
how could R2 making one small appearance be a gambit or an advertisement for a show?
Man, all droids have an agenda, dude. You see the way those Dark Troopers were in phase when they got thrown into space?
Because Ian, this is the way. Ian, this is the way. That's why.
Exactly. Thank you, Dom. So, Dom, what segment are we moving into now?
So we're moving into positives and negatives now. This is where the wild and loose fun comes in. Again, I've talked enough. I always talk enough with these recap sections. So we're going to roll around. We're going to start with Pat like we usually do, because we're always the most interested to hear Pat's overall thoughts. But then we're going to go around in the circle. Start with Pat, then from my view, Ian, AJ, Matt, and Chris, and back to me. So, Pat, your thoughts on the final.
What are we starting with? The positives first?
Positive.
And then we're doing a round
whichever one you want to go with at this point. It's the finale. All bets are off.
All right, let's stick with the positives then. I personally, from the moment that Slave One is chasing down this transporter to the Imperial cruiser until the end, this thing is just a wild ride. So I'm going to stick with that. I feel like it was the most Star Wars that we've actually gotten in The Mandalorian. We're having a little bit of a battle in space. We got some TIE fighter action, flying right into the hangar pits. And then we have sort of that action, that adventure sort of Nicolas Cage National Treasure type action that Star Wars is very similar to. And they're, doing sort of the sword fighting, gunfighting, whatever you want to call it, throughout the ship. And one of the things that I thought was really well done was how subtle like Moff Gideon's reaction was, because for the most part, he knows that they're coming, right? The previous episode, he got a message that says, hey, I'm coming for you. He knows that he's kind of hanging out with Boba Fett. He has this special ability to know everything too. So he could see Slave One out the window and he knows that this is it. But Moff Gideon lays a really intelligent trap. It's almost like he wanted to get caught and, pass the Darksaber onto the Mandalorian. And I'm really excited about where that develops. Bo-Katan versus the Mandalorian. We know that they have differing objectives. Like the Mandalorian doesn't want that Darksaber. She does, but like now they're at odds. And I wonder how this is going to play out, like what Moff Gideon's master plan going forward is. And I think that's really the most exciting, story elements in this episode is sort of, what's going to happen with Moff Gideon when they take him to jail and they sort of get information out of him. We have Thrawn, who was sort of mentioned previously. So there's a lot of cool things that could develop from Moff Gideon being captured and his passing of the Darksaber to, the wrong person, the person that was not expected to get it. And then also, obviously with Luke Skywalker and having a Jedi come in, again, that really makes this, start to feel like a Star Wars universe. And I think that's what's sort of been missing throughout the first 2 seasons of this show. Like Ahsoka Tano was good, kind of got us hyped, got us more into like, hey, Jedis are coming. But now we're actually, seeing more of that. And I want to see that sort of storyline expand in season 3.
Yes. And fingers crossed that it does, because with the amount of spinoffs that we're getting, we're going to see an expanse in a lot of different ways. Ian, my good sir, what are some of your just overall just thoughts, positives, negatives after this episode?
Ooh, kind of bouncing off Pat. I'm extremely excited to see where they go. I do have some questions. I mean, like, how does Mando not know about the Mando legacy? First off, I don't know. I guess like not. I mean, I know that he was taken off Mandalore at an early age. But to me, that baffled me, how he had no idea, about that. Again, I think it kind of relates back to how the Jedi were just forgotten. They were a forgotten religion that just died off. Perhaps that could be an excuse. Again, I digress, but I am very excited to see it. I love Boba. I thought that was great. In terms of where it goes, I mean, what is there for Mando to do now? Very excited to see how that progresses. I mean, will they take that opportunity to bring in, some kind of Legends characters at this point? I mean, I know they're certainly going to focus on Thrawn in season 3. Great. 2 thumbs up there. Can't wait for it. But in terms of where it progresses, I guess I have no idea. So I'm along for the ride. I'm thrilled to be along for the ride. And again, I thought this was, something that Pat said, the most Star Wars episode we've gotten so far. Just the inside of the cruiser, the Imperial uniform, it all fit. It all seemed to mesh really well. Again, I do have some gripes. One, Luke taking down that hallway of droids. They were the slowest droids all of a sudden. They were kicking ass, punching Mando in the helmet, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, then I'm going to raise my, I don't know. I thought that was, a little, it was a little died down. Certainly.
Well, the thing is, the droids knew they had to slow down for the sake of hitting the climactic moment of the story. So that's kind of, it was in their programming. That you get that from reading the comics in the expanded canon.
Have you seen?
So I can understand your confusion there.
Have you seen just anytime droids are put in the same room as a Jedi? Have you seen that? They always go forward when it comes to Jedi.
But I'm saying in a moment like that.
Hey, Ian, I'm sorry. I'm just being a little hyperbolic, but you actually raised a good point.
Like, dude, did you see how easily those droids got taken down by the clone troopers?
Well, let's bring up those when Cara Dune and Boba Fett's female sidekick,
Fennec Shand is her name.
They're just walking up that hallway. No cover, just and like nothing. And I know stormtroopers are bad at aiming, and I get that. But come on here, a little more realism would have been nice, But then again, it did open up that scene where Bo-Katan and Sasha Banks go up, and boom, that was great. And in terms of it being reminiscent of Vader in the hallway, I don't know if you could ever compare Vader, busting open that hallway. The amount of terror that was on those rebel guards' face, knowing that their life was over. Again, I'm nitpicking here, but if there were some things that I noticed the second time around, I'm like, I'm like, okay, I noticed that. But again, I did love it. I love the choreography of it all. I thought it was, just the perfect way to end off and leave me wanting more for the next season.
Fair enough. AJ, dude, where's your head at with all this?
Hear it. Let's hear the hot take. Let's get it over with.
Yo, I am the hot take, and I'm gonna keep it kind of brief, because I know we have more things to get into. But positives. So are we doing positives and negatives?
Whichever one you want to go with.
You can throw them out there. Then it usually turns into a discussion anyways. So
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give brief positive and brief negative. So I feel like this episode overall, it was great. It felt very Star Wars-esque, like Professor Pat was saying. And it felt very adventurous. We got TIE fighters and we got X-Wings and we got Jedi and all things like that. But it kind of took away from this whole season, kind of took away from why I was attracted to The Mandalorian anyway. I feel like what attracted me to Mandalorian is that this is part of the Star Wars universe, right? But it's set apart. Like it's not familiar characters. It's not supposed to really be familiar planets and atmosphere. It's supposed to be different. It's supposed to expand the world. And it felt like this episode, as well as the whole season 2, made the world feel a little small. I know that we kind of talked about that in Basic Entertainment's reviews that we've been doing every Monday night, but it felt a little bit small and it felt a little gimmicky, especially with adding Luke in the end. Y'all know I didn't want Luke. Seeing him in the hallway, it was dope. Don't get me wrong. It was epic. But it just made it feel a little bit small, and it took away from why I fell in love with Mandalorian in the first place.
All right.
But yeah, those are my takes.
Okay, definitely interesting. I'll have to come back to you as far as like figuring out like what exactly you specifically mean by it feeling small. But like I said, we'll get back to that. Matt, so you definitely gave this show a very glowing review in your starter kit. So what are just some overall takeaways, positive and negative, from this episode?
Just man, the direction was spot on. It was surprising from getting a guy out. When I heard Peyton Reed was going to do this, I was scared. And I'm just proud of him with the sense of tone, the choreography, the action, the stakes felt real. The acting from characters like, Giancarlo Espinosa, Pedro Pascal, just that small facial acting really get me some real emotion, some raw emotion. And I asked for it, I manifested it, and I got it with Luke. I'm just so proud of it that I actually got Luke Skywalker here in The Mandalorian. I always knew it was going to be Luke.
Into existence. You did.
Just, I'm telling you, I'm inside those studios. I know what they're talking about. I write it down and I come over here, and I just with Luke. Man, I don't know what. I was shaking. I was just shaking, and I was in disbelief, total disbelief, and total just lost for words. But negatives don't have too much. But there is a little gripes here and there.
All right, definitely interesting. All right, Chris, let's hear it, because we didn't have a lot of time to talk about this episode before we got on this call. So this is Cole. I have not heard Chris's thoughts on this in general. So.
Yeah, totally, man. And I'm curious to see kind of what you think, your further embellishments on the episode. But, for me personally, I thought that it was really well done. I'm with Matt in regards to, I'm not stoked when I see Peyton Reed's name on things. I'm just not. And that isn't going to change because this episode, but that also isn't me saying this is a bad episode. What's going on, unboxing? Good to have you guys in the chat, everyone hanging out tonight. Again, let us know what you think. Share your thoughts with us. We want to hear them. We'll read them tonight live on the show. But to keep going, I think Peyton Reed, I wouldn't say knocked it out of the park, but I think he did a bang-up job, because I agree, the stakes felt real. It felt like Star Wars. It was organic and it flowed, and each character, like last week, played a purpose to serve the overall narrative. They felt like a well-oiled machine. They were all on the same team. They put their differences aside, and it felt real. It didn't just feel forced for the sake of, well, hey, we want your spinoff to happen. We want your spinoff to happen, and you have to sell these T-shirt lines. So you guys gotta all be in this episode and agree. it actually felt real, even though they're doing that, which they are. But that's fine. That's what companies do. I'm not mad about that. I actually think it's really smart. I just think it's dumb to do that in a way where it just seems like they want me to go and buy my R2D2 RC toy for underneath the Christmas tree. But all that stuff aside, understanding the corporatism that will always be behind these huge IPs, they nailed it in regards to the uniformity, the characters coalescing and fighting for the greater good. It felt real. Giancarlo Esposito still fails to impress me. I just don't think we've got enough of him. I don't think it's him, AJ. I think it's really just what they're doing with him. I mean, he's a great actor, but
in this show, though, right?
In this show, because I think he's a great actor. But I think if your only exposure to him was watching The Mandalorian, you wouldn't think he was a terrible actor, but you wouldn't think he was anything special. You would kind of wonder how he got the part, in my opinion. And so we'll see where this show goes and this show progresses. And I know we have that segment later on in the show, the future of the galaxy. So I don't want to get too much into it. But I do just want to say one more thing in regards to a negative. And it was, I was begging for anyone but Luke Skywalker, because I agree with AJ, where if this whole show was expanding the Outer Rim, I'm sorry, but jumping to a new quadrant off of hyperspeed and seeing the same starry background is not getting me a new section of Star Wars I haven't seen before. You know, like that means nothing to me. And that's what we got this episode. We got, you know, just more of nostalgia dumping and more of old hero coming in to save the day. There were so many more different things you could have played with. I mean, you have Cal Kestis, for Pete's sake. You have a Hollywood B-lister, potentially an A-lister, depending on if his career keeps continuing to go in the direction that it has been, who's in canon, in a video game, got bodysuited, got scanned in, trained in lightsaber practice for the game, knows it like the back of his hand, and you're talking about expanding the Star Wars universe, and we get Mark Hamill de-aged in a very, very terribly way where I don't even understand. As an audio engineer, that didn't sound like Mark Hamill at all. It sounded like, there's this YouTuber who does a great impression. He's cheaper. Let's get him and say it's Mark Hamill. So I thought that was really stupid, but the moment was great. I just thought the choice to bring, like, the Jedi coming in was awesome. I just think that the fact that it was Luke was, they think I'm stupid, and I don't like that. So, Dom, what's your take on this episode?
I think you still seem to think that these studios have a little bit of a personal beef with you. And again, I will hesitate to remind you that you are not who this show revolves around, as I feel like I constantly have to.
What, a diehard Star Wars fan?
No, just you specifically. Because trust me, there are plenty of other people who think that this revolves around them. And look, so first things first, I just wanted to get a couple of things out of the way. One, Ian, answer your question. ISB is Imperial Security Bureau. It's just a certain sect of the Empire that he worked for when it was a commission. When it was in commission? And secondly, before we get to the Luke shade dumping, I just want to say props to my man for after Return of the Jedi, when he's now a big bad Jedi who's up close and personal with the two founders of the New Republic, and he's still flying that X-Wing like a champ. Props to him, you know? I like that. Show some loyalty to the farm boy pilot roots where he comes from. And look, all I'm going to say is I'm not going to talk too much specifically about this episode in general, because I feel like as far as everything that I wanted to get from this episode, I got. Again, it's hard to talk about because of the Disney Investor Day and everything that was announced there, as far as that's going to cloud our judgment regardless, as far as kind of what the future of this show bodes, where now it feels like we're having to gear ourselves up for 15 new shows that are all going to factor in. That, I'll admit, is where a big dislike of mine comes from, but that I don't feel is fair to compare to the episode. That's just a thing of me that I'm doing. The episode itself, to me, I'll be the first person to admit, I don't care. I'll die on this hill. This is a perfect finale. This is a perfect finale as far as I'm concerned. The Luke stuff, I have the same thoughts on it as the Talkin stuff. It's whatever. It's a CG job. It's a choice. They chose it. I don't hate it. I don't feel like it personally affects me in any way, shape, or form. And the moment was awesome. It was great. As far as what I wanted and concerned, yes, I agree. But I'm going to make an executive decision here as far as just for my personal enjoyment, as far as the future of this show goes, which is that I'm putting to bed kind of my problems with the structure of the show. No more. I'm done making fun of it. I get it. It's the decision that they've chosen to go with. It's what they're choosing to do with the structure. Sure, it might not make for the best overall when it comes to the story and answering all the questions of the mythos, but it's funny because I was listening to a podcast the other day with Sam Esmail, the creator of Mr. Robot. He was talking about kind of his disdain for the continued distinction between movies and TV. And while I don't necessarily agree with him on everything he said, he did bring up a lot of points specifically about this show, because he was gifted enough to actually get down to where they shoot this entirely in Manhattan Beach. It still amazes me that they shoot this entire show all within studio, no exteriors. That's unbelievable just as far as the technology that this show goes. But he said that Favreau, ironically enough, in this in this new coming decade of more concentrated stories that put the emphasis on having an end game plan, and you don't pitch an idea now for a season of television to keep going and as long as you want. You pitched it so that it is a self-contained story that usually only goes for a couple of seasons in order to max out on viewers before you shift to a different story overall. And the choice that Favreau has made here is he's going simple, he's going old school, and he's going as basic as possible. And what I mean by that is that it's an interesting way as far as melding the mythology within while still keeping the show iconic, because as far as I'm concerned, all the complaints about this feeling smaller and all the complaints about this kind of feeling like, oh, the galaxy's getting smaller again and they're doing just exactly what they're doing. Yes, but that's part of what Star Wars is. Like, let's just say that's what Star Wars is at this point. And kind of this idea of, oh, we want the galaxy to be bigger as far as that goes. Like, it's already a tremendous galaxy and they're going to keep visiting stuff. But like, as far as kind of what we're, as far as this kind of incorporating this and reminding us that this is still Star Wars, I think they're doing still a bang up job as far as I'm concerned. And this is, again, we'll get into more of that later, but those are just kind of like my overall generalized thoughts on it.
Yeah, Dom, I think I totally understand your sentiment, but this was not what the show was pitched as. The show was pitched as a way to explore and expand the galaxy, and they've done zero of that. So it's kind of just like
I completely disagree with that.
Well, it seems like there's a few other people on the channel, the panel right now, who are agreeing with me, and it's like, listen, man.
I know that, but I don't care. Like I said, I'll die on this hill.
Just to clarify, because I feel like you kind of took what I said and changed it. I still really enjoyed the episode. I just thought the choices they made with Luke weren't great. I mean, first of all, he walks into that room and they just hand it over to him. They don't even ask for an ID or anything. Like, this guy Mando just spent like three episodes almost trying to get this baby back, and then Luke just comes in just because he's wearing a robe. You think he's a Jedi? Like, it's
Skywalker.
like, you didn't even ask his name. He said to Baby Yoda, I'll meet you again someday, and they don't even know his name.
That's true.
Christian, do you think the de-aging made him look younger than 21? Like,
I definitely think they didn't have an ID.
I don't know about
I think that is a fact.
Dude, none of this is making any sense to me. First of all, he's Luke Skywalker. He's the most iconic Jedi in the galaxy. Everyone should know of him at this point. He just saved them by slicing through 30 droids that they couldn't get, that he barely, it took him like half an hour just to take down one. Not to mention the fact that he knows for a fact that Grogu called out to a Jedi overall. And to me, it's so funny because I feel like the exact problem that we had with this on The Boys, where Butcher says that he's going to hang on to the kid and then he just hands him off to the FBI chick. And then in this show, because the whole point of this season was for Mando to get Grogu to a Jedi. He got him to a Jedi. Again, he brought him to one, and then he ended up getting him to another. Like, I don't understand like where the confusion is coming from. That like everything that I've heard so far is nitpicks.
Can I jump in and just say that I think Luke Skywalker being the Jedi is a blessing in disguise, because he now has the puppet. It is the easiest way to write this thing off The Mandalorian. It's flying in space with Luke Skywalker. That's a different show. That's guest appearances across these 15 different shows that they have. It doesn't have to center in The Mandalorian about Grogu and getting him somewhere. The first arc of the show, finding where Grogu belongs, is over, and now we can focus on other things. And it sets up all these spinoffs. So I think the potential for, okay, yes, Luke Skywalker comes in and it makes the world small, but hopefully there's past that hot potato, get it off the show, and let's move into The Mandalorian and have him explore the Outer Rim and have different stories and meet different characters. And he at least kind of brushed up with the Jedi. I think that's where things should go. I think it's like, it gives us enough of the Star Wars universe, and now let's make The Mandalorian its own thing going forward. And that's what I hope happens.
That's exactly what I'm thinking as far as me sharing your sentiments go. Like that decision to me was a way to, again, like for this, it's a weird comparison thinking about it, but as far as kind of the mythology discussion goes, like I'll get into that in a little bit, but that decision to me was kind of the decision that I feel like Game of Thrones made at the end of each season, where each season, at the end of each season, Game of Thrones made a choice that seemed to radically revise everything that happened in the previous season, while also setting us up for this new story. And what I find interesting is how the decision to pass Grogu from The Mandalorian to Luke Skywalker, again, officially opens the door for guest appearances that we don't have to focus so much on this puppet, and it leaves The Mandalorian free to do literally whatever path it wants now. as far as he could choose to conquer Mandalore. He could choose to go back to being just a bounty hunter. Like the idea of, again, it's so tricky to measure what the spinoffs are actually going to do as opposed to what will actually happen in this show specifically. But it's interesting how, to me, this season was able to set up so much while at the same time still being concentrated in its own lane. Like, I think it's a really interesting thing that the show is not getting enough credit for, and I think it's largely because of the amount of spinoffs that have been announced. But I digress. Like, what's everyone's kind of reaction to that?
Yeah, I'll just say, and then we'll toss it over to our guest for the night. I can guarantee you that it's not the fact of the spinoffs. You know, like I say, I always sit down and I make my opinion on what I just watched. I don't take the news or current events into play here. All I'm saying is that I thought that this episode had flaws. It wasn't perfect. It also wasn't terrible. I do think that what they did with Luke was a bit corny, and I really think that if Mando considers this Grogu puppet to be his son, I mean, I don't know. You didn't even get the guy's number where your kid's going to be staying. Like, that's like the ultimate leaving your kid at sleepaway camp. I just thought it was weird. That's all I'm saying. Luke says this was the way. I guess he likes it. What's going on, Luke? But yeah, I don't know. We'll go with Ian and move our way down again. Ian, I saw you shaking your head, nodding your head a lot. What's going on in your head right now?
Hard tonight. And Ian, just so you know, you're still okay. Yeah, Ian's disagreeing with me hard tonight. Like, he's probably like, "Oh man, Dom got me on this panel, and he's killing me, man, with all his opinions."
So much so that I've forgotten how many points I disagreed with you on.
Wow, you hurt me. You hurt me.
First off, okay, I totally agree. Handing the kid off without bat and eyelash was fucking weird. Okay, let's be honest. That was weird. But let's revert to a point that you said, Dom. Oh, they knew a Jedi was coming. He called out on the stone. He knew a Jedi was coming. Okay, but let's look at what Mando and Cara Dune and everybody's knowledge of the Jedi are at the time. They don't even know what a Jedi is, let alone probably how to spell the word. I mean, to them, they don't understand what a Jedi is, what they're capable of. They think there's some hoagie taboo religion from back in the day. So, you know, him showing up with a lightsaber, sure, that might have been a telltale sign. But I mean, if you really want to break down the logistics here, and they should have been expecting Luke to show up. I can't agree with that.
Did we miss the part where he had a whole episode where he interacted with the Jedi, so he was familiar with them and he knew?
Okay, yeah, but Mando even refers to them.
We're all on the same page here because I feel like we're talking about a different show.
No, because Mando goes so far to refer to them as their own kind, almost his own species. Mando's understanding of what a Jedi is very, very minute at this point. So, in terms of what you said, they should have, known who he was, and they should have, I guess, reacted more welcoming to the dude taking down God knows how many dark or death troopers. Can't say I would agree with you there, my friend.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's kind of like, sure, Luke did them a solid. Taking out those dark troopers does, I'd say, buy him some favor in their eyes. But like Moff Gideon has a saber. Does that make him a Jedi? These guys, like when you say the information's all over the galaxy, like they have Twitter and they all follow CNN or something, Dom, I disagree. I feel like this is the galaxy very much in disrepair, and there's a lot of disinformation going around. I feel like we see that with the interactions we've had with the rebels this season and with the Empire, and how, some people don't know the Empire exists and some do still, and some just got the news about the Death Star. Like it feels like just they didn't line up with the world they built here. And that's kind of why I raised my point to begin with in the first place.
I saw him use the Force. Moff Gideon couldn't use the Force.
Yeah, but their understanding of what the Force is,
yeah.
I'm sorry, you sit there and read comics and novels and watch movies and broken it down. But imagine throwing you into a galaxy far, far away.
Of what I have seen in this show, and for what this show is,
take it away, please. I can't do this.
I mean, even in classic
understanding of Jedi, in order to understand that this is not somebody who is a threat, this is somebody who is there to help them, and this is somebody who is there to take the child that he's specifically summoned to. As far as what the show story is telling me. Like,
that was apparent.
Based off of.
But even in classic Star Wars, there are people who don't understand the Force. They just know it exists, or they think it's fake or real.
I didn't even know what the Force was.
And it's not like you can see the Force physically.
But I want to jump in and bring up a point that really bothered me about this episode is Luke comes in, he has the lightsaber, and he's kind of killing all these robots. But basically the Mandalorian just got the dark saber, and he just can hit a button and turn it on, and he could now kill all these robots. I'm just curious why he just doesn't solve the problem himself. And the whole, Deus Ex Machina, the Jedi's coming in to save the day. It doesn't feel like they properly set that up. It's like they gave the Mandalorian the tool to solve his own problem. And then they said, oh, wait, Luke's got you. It's like there's weird moments throughout the entire episode that they're like, oh, hey, we're just going to have fun. We're going to do these Star Wars moments. We want the whole fanboy, let's get them excited, so they go on a podcast and give too much information. But like, that's it. It seems like things are chunky throughout the episode. It's like, I would have liked to see the Mandalorian fight his way out with the Darksaber, and maybe even start losing to the robots before Luke shows up and saves the day. That would have been a nice.
I will give you. That is a legitimate point. I definitely think it was that I will say it was probably where the episode was at its weakest, was completely relying on Luke as a Deus Ex Machina. As a storytelling device, I agree. That's weak, and we've seen that before. And that definitely kind of felt like a way. It's like, okay, we got to wrap this storyline up, and this is kind of the only way that we see how. When you've so been heavily hinting at this Darksaber, and then it's just nothing. That I will give you. That was a point of contention at a point.
I agree with Pat as well there. AJ, man, what's your take on this? Then we'll move to Matt.
Something I wanted to bring up a little bit is the fact that we were talking about how there were stakes in this episode. I didn't really feel that. I feel like each episode this season has kind of been like that. We're right on the cusp of something dire happening, and then we get rescued. Something happens to where nothing happens. You know what I'm saying? So that was something that I might have had kind of a little bit of an issue with. But I will say, I did enjoy this episode overall as an episode, but in the hierarchy of the entire series and the entire franchise, I have some issues with it. Like I said, it feels small. The fact that we're having all these characters that we already know in this universe, in this show, it feels like we need to branch out more. We need to branch out more.
So let's talk about that real quick, AJ. I wanted to talk about that. So, because that's obviously a big point. That's something that Filoni has obviously never shied away from for any of his previous shows. Clone Wars is obviously based around legacy characters that we already know about. Rebels starts off with brand new characters and then slowly incorporates other legacy characters that we've seen before. Exactly. But again, those are animation, so those get away with it, right? So what's the difference between those doing it and this show doing it? Is my question. Because to me,
difference. There's no difference.
Okay, so but those are still good shows.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they weren't good shows. I'm not saying that they are good shows.
But in addition to that, I think those shows also, to me, expand the universe in ways that I didn't think was possible. Those don't feel constricting. So how do those not feel constricting in a way that this show does as far as bringing in the familiar characters? I have to assume that it's just a live action element, because this isn't the first thing that I've seen before that's done that.
I think maybe it is the live action element, and really all I'm going off of is the films. That's all I've seen. I haven't seen any of the animated shows. And I know kind of what they do, and I know, the characters that are incorporated with those shows, but like with the live action films and things like that, that is the Skywalker saga. Now let's put that to bed. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I get that.
That's what I'm saying.
The thing I like just specifically about Luke in this episode is this wasn't kind of a thing of, oh, Luke's going to take over the show now. This wasn't. This still felt like an addition to the universe that felt like it was still like, okay, this is still part of the Star Wars universe. It's not taking away. It's not distracting or anything. It's just acknowledging, okay, this is a part of the Star Wars universe. Like, it could have been, I feel like it could have been any Jedi. And it could have been Ezra Bridger. It could have been the Cameron Monaghan character.
I feel like we got that with Grogu. I feel like we got this is part of the. I feel like this is part of the Star Wars universe with Grogu
because he's an original character. Because he's an original character. That's why I don't agree with that.
Exactly, he's an original character that's the same species as Yoda.
So we're basing that off the species, not the character. It's not the characterization.
I mean, we have species that are part of this, universe that, we can tell that this is Star Wars. Now let's leave the Skywalker saga alone. Let's start something new. Let's branch out.
I mean, I still I still disagree on the point of it being part of the just because it's not part of the Skywalker saga, we have to completely like never bring Luke in. It's like, yes, the Skywalker saga is over. It's still the Mandalorian. Like, but
it is
like Luke coming in is not like reminding us of the Skywalker saga. Like the Skywalker's obviously still a very big part of it. But that's the thing.
I think the fact that it came up though on this podcast means that some people have been reminded of it because we saw Luke.
Oh, absolutely. But again, that's just from mere fact Luke being in the episode overall. You know?
And it's not just Luke. It's not just Luke.
Okay.
Yeah, but what do you I'm assuming you're saying it's Boba Fett. It's going to Tatooine every other episode. It's all that stuff. I'm with you on that. I get it. And I think this is where there will always be a divide within the fans because I see Dom's points. I just disagree with them, and I wish we'd take more risks. That's fine, though. I obviously still found a way to enjoy the show. It sucks that I had to find a way to enjoy the show, kind of like you said, AJ.
I said that in my review as well. I said that this show did not. It was false advertising, in my opinion, because I was attracted to the show because it was part of the Star Wars universe, but not quite, the Skywalker saga. It's not what we're familiar with, not what we're used to. And then, it started becoming like that. This season, we see familiar faces. We see Jedi. We see all that. And I was a little leery of that. I was like, okay, I want to see more of this bounty hunter lifestyle. I don't want to see, these same characters that we always know. And I don't know. It didn't sit with me well. I had to learn how to love this show in a different way.
Yes. Could not agree more. Matt, dude, you've been a little quiet over there, man. How are you dissecting all that's been going on right now?
It's like a civil war going on over here. You guys like the Skywalkers, you guys, not wanting the Skywalkers, and I'm over here consuming it all, right? But I can see the problems with you guys having these returning characters, these returning fan favorite characters. I just feel like they handled them well within the plot. I think they did their part. They made sense in a way to suspense. Yeah, you could say Luke being the Jedi. It didn't have to be Luke, but it had to be Luke. I'm just gonna keep on going off that. But yeah, this season reminds me a lot of Star Wars Rebels season 2, that we get the characters and then we get the returning characters, so we can make it feel more familiar to the Star Wars that we all know and love, and that is the Skywalkers. And they kind of attach it to it. But yeah, I'm just over here consuming it all right now.
I just don't think we need that. Personally,
I agree with AJ. Like AJ, I'm going to bring up something that is taboo on a Star Wars show, but I think Mandalorian needs to go back to a Star Trek show, Star Trek Enterprise Season 3. And Enterprise Season 3 brings up a whole entirely new race of creatures and puts the Federation versus them, and they're fighting, and we learn so much more about what they're fighting. It's new, it's unique, it's different, and that's what Star Wars needs here. Hey, they're going to do a battle for Mandalore. Give them a new enemy. Describe it to us, show us, let the stakes, whoever Thrawn is, like, let's have him have a totally different system from the Empire, and let's bring up, like, maybe he has an alliance with some other creatures that are cool, and basically just give us something new within this universe of Star Wars. And I agree with AJ on that. And I think, just look at Star Wars Enterprise Season 3, where they actually
Star Wars Enterprise.
This is the blueprint for Mandalorian Season 3.
Hey Dom, I think we found our next debate.
Right, Star Wars. What? Star
Our
Wars
first group debate.
Star Wars.
So let me pose a question here. As Star Wars fans, I know AJ, your one of your qualms was bringing these old characters into a show that, quite frankly, in your opinion, didn't need them.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
So with Grogu, are you telling me that you're not interested in possibly learning about Yoda's species? I mean, technically, this is where that could go. I mean, and I know this is a very
this is a great question
for Star Wars fans. I mean,
Ian, this is a great question.
A mysterious character and making him not mysterious anymore. I get that.
That was a phenomenal. I might disagree with you depending on what you say, AJ. For the first time tonight.
I know how you feel about Grogu, Chris.
But I do love Yoda. I don't think Yoda's my guy.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I really can't answer. You know, I don't know how I feel. I am interested in the species.
It kind of yeah.
What were you gonna say? Somebody started saying something.
It kind of feels like they don't want to touch on Yoda's species.
Yeah,
It kind of doesn't feel like they want to touch on Yoda's species.
Here.
I was expecting it.
not on Mandalorian.
Yeah, I think they should. No, that's
I feel like maybe in a different, show, or a separate, show. But I don't know.
I think what the show is doing so well is the show is pinpointing these bits of mythology without ever explaining them. And that's kind of what I like, because one of the hokier things that I noticed in the animated shows is the animated shows seem to be the only ones that really like to go into the mythology. And again, it's the never-ending problem with Star Wars that I brought up since episode 1, which is how do you balance out the more steadfast, realistic elements of this galaxy with the more hokey, Force-sensitive elements. It was ultimately always going to be a problem, and I like it because this show has ultimately just decided to go with it. They're like, yeah, we're just going to show it in action. We're not going to overly explain everything. We're not going to need to explain the origin of the species or whatever. We're going to put this thing there. If you like it, great. If not, okay. And this is just what we're going to do with it, It keeps it very simple and baseborn. And the people who are going to like that are going to love it. And the people who want the mythology, guess what? That's what the comics and the books are made for. And that's what the expanded universe of video games are made for.
Dom, that is probably the best point I've ever heard you bring up, Dom. Maybe I just got too spoiled with trade disputes and amazing acts of diplomacy. I don't know. I mean,
listen, I think the only way that people are, fans of Star Wars are going to find out about Grogu's species is if they buy multiple toys and see how they interact together. I don't think we're going to find out at all from the TV shows or anything like that. You're going to have to do it on your own. I think I looked it up. It's like $50 to $100 per pop. Buy a couple of them, see how they act. And there you go. That's your species. Cause that's as much information as we're going to get.
Probably.
Okay. Fair enough.
That would have been a great opportunity for the Clone Wars. To bring up in the Clone Wars.
We might still have a shot at jumping back into that Bad Batch universe.
Yeah, right. The Bad Batch show.
Ian, you had some stuff to say. Ian, what's going on?
Well, you know what? No, Matt's been trying to say something. Matt, you had something to say, man.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they should have touched it on this season. Half of the time people will say this is a Baby Yoda show, and I kind of see that if you want to expand on Din Djarin, you got to expand on Baby Yoda too, and the toy sales. I just think that's what I wanted this season, and then that one of my biggest takeaway is learning that species. And it seems like, oh, we're gonna get you to go watch the spinoff with Luke so you can learn. If, as Professor Pat said, if you buy the pops, if you buy the toys, if you buy the merchandise. But
I'm hearing a lot of a common problem that I've heard overall, which is wanted to have some fascination with the past and just no interest in kind of where the future of
that is so far off. You know me, I have been pledging myself to Old Republic and to new content for the last 2 years with you.
And we're getting that.
So I finally want to know where the hell Yoda came from and why the hell is extinct.
Again,
I'm sorry, that doesn't make me a bad person.
Well, no. I'm not,
why does he talk backward?
First of all, now you're putting words in my mouth. You're misconstruing.
Thank you, Matt.
And saying that I'm calling you out for having a certain take. That's not what I'm doing at all. I'm simply commenting on what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing is, again, a lot of stuff that, as I reemphasize, is covered in the expanded comics and is covered in the Wikipedia. Like, we're not here to watch a Wikipedia article. We're here to watch a show, and a show is interested in telling us a certain type of story. And
I'm not saying it necessarily needs to be done on Mandalorian, but I'm saying now that we now have the perfect setup to learn about that species, whether it be in another show, whether it be in the Ahsoka show, Luke and Ahsoka's interaction. But I do feel that Yoda's species has been a mystery long enough, and it deserves a bit of explanation. Now that's not saying I want a whole, I want to know everything, but I do feel that why is Yoda and Yaddle the only two of their kind, anywhere to be seen in a 40-year history of a franchise? I'm not trying to stir the pot here, but I love the species so much, and I guess not knowing makes me want to know more.
Pat, this is an idea that I want to just pitch your way real quick. But it was just that I think that what they should do is for every time that like we don't get an explanation for like a species, we should have like a National Geographic-esque like documentary just about a certain species of
Like
Star
a Planet
Wars.
Earth of Star Wars.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
It's just like all the different species with the
That's so
puppets.
stupid.
I think
totally
the best
works.
way
Really
the
good.
best
I
way
love that.
to really describe Grogu and Yoda's species is to really have a show. It's basically the de-age Luke and Grogu on a planet training. They're isolated by themselves and have an entire show that's just the two of them by themselves training, and basically have it directed by David Lynch. And then it gets creepier and creepier and creepier and creepier. And eventually Grogu sees his species inside his mind. And that's how we actually learn about the
I love
species.
it. That's the best idea. Yeah, way to take my idea and run with it, Pat.
That's awesome. So guys, listen, I feel like we
This episode's gone
can
completely off the rails, just like we expected it to. So
I feel like we can keep sort of, debating our own different ways that we view what Star Wars has introduced through The Mandalorian for hours. Maybe we all agree to disagree, because I do have a few other positives and negatives that I think would be interesting to get your guys' opinions on before we move forward. But I don't want to take anyone's last words away on this subject. So if anyone has anything else to say in this kind of debate of nostalgia versus does it help the show or not, that's kind of what I'm getting out of it. Speak now, or I have other things to offer, as my mic just fails to work with me here. So yeah, with that being said, guys, Luke brought this up in the chat, and he kind of read my mind. The music, I hated it on episode 1, and I've grown to love it. And I actually think it not quite does what I think scores and other shows do, where they become characters. But I think without the score in specific, if it had the traditional Star Wars music, this show would feel quite different to me. Like, I feel like the music is very impactful, and I do enjoy the synth and sort of the modern production that is very anti-John Williams that we're getting out of this show. But what do you guys think about that?
I think that Ludwig is a guy.
I think that was one of my biggest positives. I think that was one of my biggest positives was the score itself. Especially the last score of what was it called, Opening the Door. It was very emotional, and I think he played into that.
Yeah, I think it was very well done. The score was very well done this season. And like you said, that I wouldn't have put it better myself. It was kind of a character in a way. You hear that, ooh, and you're just like, oh man, like this is Mandalorian. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah,
I get hyped whenever I hear that.
Yeah, the music's definitely evolved kind of as far as where the show has come from, kind of where it started, obviously with that awesome theme music. And Ludwig, I feel like, is a guy who's constantly trying to find like that one big moment with his score. Like, he's invented this crazy new sound. I've listened to all of his scores recently. I still think the score that he did for Tenet is one of the most insane pieces of music that I've ever heard. Everything else in that movie is kind of just, we'll talk about that when Chris finally watches Tenet for the first time. But
as you watch me watch it.
Oh, dude, it's going to be insane. I didn't want to spoil that yet, but
sorry, I didn't say anything.
I think that this was the closest that Ludwig is going to get as far as kind of inventing that kind of triumphant moment. Again, he's been kind of evolving with that throughout. Again, coming up with Creed, and then with the massive stay that he made with Black Panther and that score, which is probably still my favorite score of his that he's done. But Ludwig, to me, has always been experimental, much more experimental with what he can sound like, as opposed to emulating sounds that he kind of knows people want, which is a daring choice to say the least. And it's what I kind of admire about him. And I'm still interested to see like if he can hit that kind of moment, but he came damn close this episode, just kind of like using this specifically with the Death Troopers. Oh man, that was like some of the best bit of synth I've ever heard. Just
was the outro score different this episode? I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
I feel like it was a little different.
It's what you would call a suite, where essentially it's basically just a way to incorporate like all the different motifs and themes, but sort of fit the new tone of like the climax. And I thought that was the part that I was like, okay, this dude's doing like this dude can simultaneously hang out with like my friends who listen to like synthwave and punk rock, but also probably like get a drink with Hans Zimmer and be able to like live in two different worlds of music. Like, he's so versed. It blew my mind how he, could, because that was so classical, that outro score. And then throughout the whole thing, we have this Blade Runner 2049 synth in our face, and this man is gifted. Honestly, like I've come around on him big time. I was blind to it. He's a phenomenal composer.
Yeah. This
Yeah,
is a
he
little
is.
off topic, but going with the outro, we didn't see like that typical concept art that we usually see on
we
each
did
episode.
not.
Like,
No,
what,
we did
No,
not.
because it led us up into a big old goodie bag. You know,
We're getting
leaving
there.
a
We're
birthday
definitely
party.
getting there.
And that little
I
goodie
didn't
bag,
see
we all got handed that goodie bag at the door, baby.
So before we jump any further, guys, any last positives and negatives before we jump into the next section of the show and get to that last little goodie bag section?
Copyright.
Cool. All right, Dom, what's the next section, my friend?
So are we crowning the MVP, or do you want to jump to just the next section and rip this
No,
Band-Aid off?
it's the MVP.
Yeah, okay, all right. So
MVP.
we're crowning an MVP. So for all the newcomers who haven't had a chance to be on the show yet, every episode we crown an MVP. At first we were kind of doing a combined one, but now we're just saying screw it and going around and crowning an MVP per person. It's just easier. Basically, this is any component of the show, a character, an actor, a director, a filmmaker, or just anything in general that you think is just really impressed you about this episode. So yeah, mine. I want mine to sound like the coolest, so I'll go last.
Cool.
So,
well, Pat, man, kick it off. Show the newcomers the rope here.
You know, basically, Christian, did you download my I found some marketing material for basically.
You did. Let me pull that
Yeah,
up.
it was. So we're talking about this.
I'm scared, Dom. I haven't seen this for the record, guys.
Yeah, so
Pat said something
basically,
to pull up, and I'm like, oh no, that's my first reaction.
So we're talking about the end credit sequence, and I got to there, and it was just plain, white text on black credits, and I was like, what the hell's happening? There's usually the episode art, and so that's the only reason why I saw the end of episode goodie bag, was because I scrolled through looking for something, and then I found what it was there. And so I emailed a couple people, and I got some marketing for the new show that's coming up, the Book of Boba Fett. And it seems like they're taking a take from Apple Plus's Emily Dickinson show. And
that was
I
going to
think
work
that's
its way back in somehow.
Yeah, I think this is the MVP is this teaser trailer to Boba Fett writing his memoir for the rest of the time. He settled down in a nice home, a nice villa in the sand dunes, and he's going to write his memoir, and he's going to let his imagination take us on journeys that we never thought were possible. At least that's the way I think that the show is going to do.
So so you would say that was his way.
Yeah. So anyway, I found this little piece of marketing that's coming up. You can definitely a little dark comedy, rom-com action, in the desert. I think that's what we can expect in that TV show. If I had to pick something really that's the MVP from the episode, I would definitely say, the space battle. What little we had of it is really what I liked. We brought it to the table here, and I think that moment of just like them they have a plan. They got to get into the cruiser. You got the TIE fighters. You have a little bit of chaos, and having the story cut from like Moff Gideon to Slave One to the basically hangar bay, really just jumping around and having multiple things happening at the same time. That really, to me, is key, and it has been missing through a lot of this show. And so I feel like just the production value of like having multiple things happening at the same time, is really a key thing. And I guess was sort of stoked to get the Easter egg at the end of the credits. I thought that was sort of like the one more thing that helped push this episode forward. Overall, I Dom, you said this is a great season finale, but I thought it was sort of like a mid-season finale. Like it sort of raised more questions that it sort of like answered. And so, I don't know. It didn't get me that excited to pick one particular character, as the most valuable player. I would just say like, the fact that it felt like Star Wars, That's really what I enjoyed about this episode.
So Pat's MVP is the tone of the overall episode, from what it sounded like. Ian, who is your MVP of this episode?
Ooh, I mean, Sasha Banks is damn fine Mandalorian.
Tornado DDTs. That's
Should've
the
known
MVP.
better.
I mean, I don't know. Again, biased opinion. Huge wrestling fan, but she just was awesome. I thought she played the role really well, and especially, I thought it had been confirmed that was her only one episode, was that first episode she was in, and then to see her sitting in the cantina with Bo-Katan, I was like, yeah, like throw up my fist. I was like, yes, Sasha's back.
Not to mention her initial fight with Boba was badass.
Was great, and to me, I think that I guess I'd put that one scene, when Jin and Boba walk into the cantina, and Bo and I'm sorry, I don't know Sasha's character's name. It's escaping me right now.
Hey, I don't know it either.
Hey, Ian.
What?
Jin and Boba walk into a cantina.
Yeah, it's a nice joke, isn't it? Probably that scene when they walked in and they had that whole, Bo-Katan comment, oh, don't you mean your donor? That to me, I was like, oh my God, like you didn't, like, no, you didn't. I thought that was great. And again, to me, I'm a huge lore lover. I love the lore. I'm reading the Legend series right now, 153 books. Just started book number 15. I'm going to do the journey. It'll take me a couple of years, but I'm going to do it. So to me, the lore and kind of just acknowledging some of the past events and stuff really, really made this really drove it home for me, I guess I would say.
I love how that one line when Bo-Katan says his donor says more about Boba Fett's character than any of the previous Star Wars movies that he's appeared in. And what's it called? The one other thing that I also did want to give a quick shout out to is, unfortunately, we lost actual Boba Fett performer, not the actual voice, but the guy who
Jeremy Bullock
today at 75. So rest in peace, Jeremy. Your legacy has now been propped up in even more ways than you could have possibly ever dreamed of. AJ, who is your MVP for this episode?
Yeah, man, I'm gonna choose an actual character, but I wanted it to be Mando. I kind of feel like it is Mando, but I would say Luke. Even though I didn't want to see Luke in the season, I didn't want to see Luke in the show.
There we go.
I have to say
I had to.
that scene where you see him in on the screen. And you don't really know what Jedi it is, but you kind of know.
I do.
And then you should
know
the color of the saber. You're like, oh, that's Luke. That's Luke. So.
Could have just as easily been Ezra, though. That's the thing. Could have just as easily been Ezra.
Ezra. Yeah.
Could have been, but Ezra doesn't fly an X-wing. That's how we know.
AJ, you didn't watch animated shows though, right?
I didn't. I haven't seen.
Yeah, so he wouldn't know. He wouldn't know Ezra, man.
I'm almost done with Rebels. Now I knew it was gonna. The minute that I saw that X-wing, I'm like, oh shit, it's Luke. I'm like, I
thought it was gonna be Cal Kestis, but then the green saber, as you guys say.
You'll explain who this character is afterwards, right? Because it sounds like you're a little bit obsessed with him. So
good writing's good writing, man.
Hey, I agree with that fully. Matt, who's your MVP of the episode?
Oh man, I want to go with director, but I'm gonna go. Oh man, it's tough right now for me. I'm gonna go Luke.
Two for Luke,
hands down. One of the most iconic scene. It's gonna be one. The hallway scene that he had was better than Darth Vader in Rogue One, in my opinion. It was cool. I don't know because that Darth Vader scene in Rogue One felt like a real reshoot. Yeah, it felt like a real reshoot to me. It felt like they were just right there in the building and doing shoots before the movie comes out. It didn't feel genuine, like it was part of the script. Like Luke to me is a symbolic hope figure icon.
I agree.
And dude, I never had as big a smile in my face seeing that X-wing pop up. I knew it was Luke, and oh man, I'm so giddy about that.
Man, giddy.
But I'm gonna go Luke. I think I'm gonna go.
Somebody. All right, so we got 2 for Luke. We got one for Sasha Banks, and we got 1 for the tone. Chris, who's your MVP of the episode?
Yeah, mine is R2D2 because that is just shameless self-promotion right there. No, I'm just kidding. For in all seriousness, my MVP is the Mando. The man himself, because just the emotional performance there. I mean, to act with the puppet and as shitty a puppet as the one that they gave this show, that's difficult. And to get that emotion when those dumb puppet hands reach out and touch his face, I really was just like, wow, like this dude is actually making me forget all of my anger and hatred I have towards the Baby Yoda puppet right now, because I'm like, this is a performance.
I was tearing
What's
up
that?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's some great
I
acting,
almost
yeah.
did. I swear to God, I almost did. With all my problems. That's why I said, like, I have to be hard on this show because I see so much potential in it. But really, he was just so impressive in this episode. He fought like everything was on the line. He made decisions like everything was on the line, and he is a true Mandalorian at the end of the day. Like I've never seen a more truer portrayal of a fictionalized character than this guy in this episode. Just not giving an inch and sacrificing who he is, but getting the job done at all costs. Like, well done, Mando. You earned this episode.
Pedro Pascal showed up to play, and he
did.
When
He owed
he
his
is
weight.
there,
Yeah.
when he is there for those 2 days on set, he really gives it his all. Actually giving a performance. Because, I'm sorry, there's no way in hell that he's actually wearing the suit that whole time. He's not. Well, before I get into my MVP, I just want to
Yeah.
give a quick shout out to Luke for having the best MVP. Truly, Din's helmet for taking an absolute battering and maintaining its shape. Like, god damn, Beskar Steel really is tough. And his MVP also goes to Bo-Katan for not simply taking the Darksaber in order to fuel some conflict for season 3. Again, we're going to do that in a little bit of contention later on, because I'm still not entirely convinced that she's still alive. I get it, Beskar Steel, but I mean, she was not getting back up.
That's a hot take, my friend.
Right? Look, there are so many different people that I could give MVPs to. I could give it to Boba. I could give it to John and Dave for pulling this off for this grand slam finale. I could even give it to Peyton Reed for completely redeeming himself after that garbage second episode that he directed with those goddamn spiders. But I'm going to come out of left field, Chris. I'm going to steal what I'm actually surprised wasn't your choice. I'm going with Ludwig. Ludwig Göransson for me is my MVP because I think the music throughout this entire second season just got stepped up to another level. Him as a performer, this was the most tense that I've been during action sequences and just sequences on anything this entire year, and a large part of that was because of the music. This was the first episode where he actually got to some of those triumphant beats, not just the typical like really dark synthy beats, and just the tune when you were just getting the build up to those Dark Troopers coming out. It was on another level. So that is my final MVP for the Mando watch. It is Ludwig Göransson. I'll go back, and I think maybe as like a fun Facebook or Instagram bit, I'll go and make a list of all of my MVPs for each episode. Well, for all the 7 episodes that I was on for the show, and even the episode that I missed too. So
yeah, you could still give your MVP. No, that's a really good choice, man. I'm surprised. Wow, so the music really impacted with you.
Because Luke was too obvious, and as you can see, 2 other people already picked him, so I couldn't go with him. I'm pretty sure I already rewarded John and Dave at other points. I'm like, I gotta go Ludwig. I'm like, it's gotta be this. I'm like, this is the most he's impressed me since Black Panther, as far as just what his musical capabilities he's capable of.
Cool. So, guys, moving into
I think this is probably his best work.
Oh,
Might
Ludwig?
Be. Yeah, it might be.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, dude, the man, the sky's the limit. I feel like if he wasn't already a sought-after commodity in Hollywood, I think he really made himself something with this episode in specific, but this season
he's getting
overall.
better and better and better.
He's one of the only people who had a mainstream big movie original score make it into theaters in 2020. Keep that in mind. That has nothing to do with the actual quality of his work. That has to do with a lot of other factors, but still,
he did it. Now, Dom, I want to tack this into this section, but I specifically want to, before we jump into the effects on the galaxy, I want to talk about what you've been trying to get out all episode. I didn't want to spoil it over text with you, by the way. That's why I couldn't give you too much information earlier, because I needed you to experience this.
So I think it's interesting that you wanted me to save this for this bit, because I still don't understand how this doesn't affect the story. But okay, so end credits. So the credits stop. It opens up. We're like, what? There's more stuff. What is this? An episode of Community? I haven't dropped one of those in a while. Are we actually going to get some resolution? And no, instead we get another very familiar sight. Again, AJ. I understand. At that point, I was like, oh, why are we back at Jabba's palace? And we saw Bib Fortuna, who's still alive somehow. I thought he died, but apparently not. He's still alive, and he is quite literally taken Jabba's spot. He has gained almost enough weight to almost be as fat as a hut itself. part of my working theory about Hutts, but we'll get into that in a later point. They're just like mutated versions of other species in the galaxy. They just get too fat to move around. But yeah, so he's sitting there again, really just enjoying himself as Jabba, as the new Jabba stand-in. But oh no, the Fennec and Boba have arrived, and they shoot all of his guys. And Bib, of course, tries to talk his way out of it, and Boba shoots and kills him before settling down as the new Jabba the Hutt crime lord on Tatooine. Before the end credits reveal the Book of Boba coming December 2021. So, I mean, that's just one small piece of how this whole episode affects the galaxy, because they're like, this really was the Avengers Endgame of this show, where in addition to wrapping up the effects of the previous 2 seasons, it was setting up for 17 different spinoffs that were happening along the way. So I don't even know where to begin here as far as this goes. Like, I thought that we had enough to talk about with Thrawn and the Mandalorians in episode 3, and obviously with Boba and everything that happened to him in episode 6. And we didn't have as much to talk about in certain other episodes with its effects in the galaxy, although episode 4 was a little bit of a surprise. But this episode, like, oh my God, we got Luke, we got the Mandalorians, we got the future of Mandalore, we got all the crime stuff, we've got Ahsoka still out there looking for Thrawn, we've got obviously what is assumed to be the beginning of Luke's Jedi school that was eventually burned down by Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren in the future trilogy. Like, where the hell do we even begin here? And that's not even to mention the actual 3rd season of The Mandalorian, all the spinoffs that we know are coming. So, like, again, I reiterate, where the hell do we even begin here as far as effects on the galaxy?
Yeah.
Serious people talk.
You guys jump in first, man. I want you guys to take. Yeah, exactly. I'm with you, Dom.
Like,
I want to see how the rest of our panel reacts to this thing.
Let's go.
I think an important place to start here is in terms of how this really will play into the sequel trilogy. Now, I had texted Dom as soon as I was done with the episode in a comment I had made to him. Again, going back to my love of Legends and the lore here, the way that they built it, I hope that we don't go through all of this trouble and all this passion to get Grogu, force trained just to have Kylo burn it down to shit. I'm sorry, that would be an absolute waste in my opinion. I'm hoping, and I know this is an extremely hopeful and way left in the ballpark idea here. I mean, taking and the more I think about it, it's so not realistic, but it's just what I love, is taking all this lore and kind of reshaping the aftermath of the original trilogy. I know it's Disney. We're not going to do that. They're not going to, completely erase, the last 3, almost 4 years, since Force Awakens. I know that. But the way that they're approaching it is so much better, in terms of approaching Luke's school, and so much that I wanted to learn about that, because when Luke formed his school, I mean, it wasn't just children, it was more so adults than children, because these were adults that were, somewhat living, throughout the galaxy and knew that they had something special about them, but didn't really realize they were force sensitive. So to kind of, play into the beginning stages of, the actual New Republic, leading into, what the hell happened to Mandalore during the whole sequel trilogy. Obviously we're learning now that Bo-Katan and Mando certainly have plans for that. How does that tie in? So I guess I'm agreeing with Dom here that it left me with a trillion more questions than I went into it with. But I guess those immediate events I'd love to see play out more, especially Luke's school. If they could do some stuff with that, would love to see it.
I would love to see Luke up there, like, force wielding a piece of chalk on a chalkboard, like explaining things to be. That's the kind of expanded content I want out of Star Wars.
And people wonder why Chris loves The Office.
Oh man. Yeah, man. Good writing, like I said earlier. Now, AJ, dude, let's jump into you, man. What was your take on this whole Book of Boba?
I didn't know really what to make of it. I'm thinking, is the way they left the Mandalorian and Bo-Katan and the whole group there, it felt like they were really wrapping up a whole arc, and it felt like maybe Boba Fett for season 3, this is what we're getting for season 3. We might not focus on the Mandalorian on season 3. That's how it felt to me. And I kind of was questioning, like, is the Mandalorian done with, You know, are they done with that particular Mandalorian? I don't know. Are they gonna, you know, approach the show differently with different characters? Kind of make it a anthology type thing. After this, I didn't know. So I'm not too excited about it. You know how I feel about, you know, these the Skywalker saga and things like that. So I don't know. I'm not too super excited about it.
Yeah, I hear you. It's certainly interesting to think about. I don't really know where this season 3 goes. They said it's confirmed. They said it's coming.
Is this Boba Fett, you know, the book of Boba Fett, is that going to be season 3, or is that going to be, you know, another spinoff, or you know, a movie, or, you know, what's
No, to be honest with you, I think this was just Disney holding one piece of information back on their investor day. This is just me, you know, sort of speculating. Maybe it's just going to business school now, thinking about things differently. To me, it kind of seems like they hooked us with the investor day. They knew if people weren't already watching, they were damn sure going to tune in to this Mandalorian finale now. And they were like, hold on, hold my drink. I got one more thing for you. That's what I think it is. I think these are two separate shows. As for the future of the Mandalorian, AJ, I kind of hope it's a way for fans like us to get more of what we want. Uncharted territory, new characters.
I really hope so. Because this season 2, as much as I enjoyed the episodes themselves, it felt like one big setup. And then we got Investor Day, and I was just like, man, this is why they've been, you know, doing season 2 the way that they've been doing it. It felt gimmicky, and I felt a little cheated, honestly.
Fair enough. I actually wouldn't use the word gimmicky. I think with Favreau and Filoni, it feels true. It feels like this isn't just a cash grab, even though they're getting paid, obviously, a lot of money to do it, because they love Star Wars so much. You know, if I didn't know about the creators, the things that I've learned and that Dom's taught me and stuff about them, then I would totally agree. I guess what I'm hoping for is like what Joe just said, Mando Civil War Season 3. That'd be awesome. We've never been to Mandalore live action yet. Let's see what's going down there. Let's just get off of Tatooine. Let's get as far away from those dumb Skywalkers as we possibly can. I love the Skywalkers. I'm sorry. I'm just frustrated, Luke. My bad. Don't come after me. But like, you know what I'm trying to say. You get what I'm trying to say. But anyways, Matt, dude.
I don't want anybody to feel that I don't like, you know, that saga. I love it. That's what, you know, pretty much got me into
exactly
the franchise. You know what I'm saying? And don't hear me say that I hate Skywalker, because he's my MVP. Like it was epic, and there's no denying that. But you know, I feel like this story needs to be put to rest a little bit.
Yep, I hear you. I think it's just like where the panel tonight kind of agrees to disagree. But
yes.
Anyways, Matt, man, what is your take on this Book of Boba drop that we got?
Interested in seeing what it is. I know Boba has kind of grown on me this season. It's been kind of up and down with him going in and then coming out strong with Boba. I think AJ, I think we could get Boba doing those kind of adventures that you want to see, exploring new grounds. Because I can't see a show of Boba just sitting on a chair. You know what I'm saying? I just can't see him being what is going to be a root. Like, what is he? What's his goal? What's up with Boba? What's his journey? And I feel like the show formula needs to end here. It can't be a serialized adventure week by week. It needs to change it up a bit next season, and it needs to be more story focused and story driven with a potential Mando Civil War with Bo-Katan. But one thing I just kind of want to get a question, Dom. So in Rebels, Sabine hands the Darksaber to
exactly. And I've actually
Bo-Katan.
really,
but why did the rules?
I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Did the rules change here, or
I wanted to tap into that a little bit, because I didn't want to do that in the moment. Because again, this show is not appealing to Rebels fans. The show is also appealing to people who watch the show. But at the same time, I'm like,
I love Rebels.
Hypocritical much? Because I literally just saw it, and I'm like, okay, so it's cool. Wait, it's cool when a regular Mandalorian does it, but when a member of the Watch does it, all of a sudden they gotta fight to the death. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact of like, oh, it's because Sabine was Ursa's daughter, and Ursa was a very close confidant and friend of Bo-Katan and everything. But I'm so glad that you brought that up, Matt, because that was literally my only nitpick, where Moff Gideon was like, oh, you have to fight for the Darksaber. And I'm like, do they? I don't think that's a precedent that's actually set up. So
Yeah.
don't worry. This is how I know we're on the same
Interesting.
side. We are not alone as far as that struggle. And
I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm guessing something changed with Bo.
probably.
Why is
I
this
don't
show
know.
so sloppy?
It had to be something
sometimes?
changed, or just maybe it's just a plot hole.
It was a fact
Yeah.
of they're like, oh, it like they just slipped through the cracks. They wanted to make it cool, and they just completely forgot about that one kind of hanging loophole.
Okay.
They
How
set
about
up.
this? How about this as an ultimate
Yeah.
story thing? That the reason why Moff Gideon seems to know everything is because when he says things are true, they happen. Like he basically changes things. So when he said like you have to fight for it now, he sort of willed that into the universe.
So he's the Purple
And
Man.
that-
From Jessica
Yeah,
Jones.
it's a weird power that Moff Gideon has to justify the character, because pretty much they destroyed the character this episode. They made him a badass for 2 seasons, and then they're like, "Oh, you're gonna get slapped around for a little bit and almost commit suicide," and that's it. They almost threw the character away. And
Almost. Gina Carano
comment.
saved it though. Saved it with a throat shot that could have easily killed him.
Dude,
So,
she's such a
that
badass.
threw me off though, where I'm like, bro, you just stopped him from shooting him, but you just uppercutted him in a way that I'm like, that guy's not gonna be breathing for like a while. I'm like, are you
Yeah,
sure
but
you want to do that?
I don't know how that character comes back, because
Me
the
neither.
audience has been shown that he's sort of a weak-minded character, right? Because when the chips were down, he was going to take that way out, and it's like before this, I thought he was sort of like pulling the strings, and he was a puppet master, but they then showed him not to be that intelligent. So I'm very conflicted on the Moff Gideon character going forward, and it's just another issue with this finale. I just it's really easy to pick apart this finale once you start thinking about it.
Can I just say how sloppy? I didn't know that Rebels lore. I'm
Yeah.
actually really glad you guys brought that up. This show is so sloppy. There's something in every episode that they
Hold
pointed out
on
that's
here, hold
convenient, or that they just like, because the Rebels, that's canon. Rebels, Clone Wars, that's canon.
Harry,
Right, but Mando didn't see
Everybody-
Gideon for the saber either. He knocked him down and knocked out of his hand. So technically, Mando isn't the rightful owner either.
I mean, none of
Well,
them
he
are.
defeated him in combat.
Yeah, he did defeat him.
Bullshit. No, according to Mandalorian rule, you have to die. It's a combat to the death. Bullshit.
but-
Mando is not the rightful owner of the dark saber.
All right, listen, you can make a case
you
for that. That's a deeper rabbit hole, I would say. I don't even think.
Yeah,
Moff
real,
Gideon said it.
real,
It was
real
true.
quick, real quick before I get into my thoughts of where the expanded universe goes, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be a little different than the rest of you guys. So, Joey, once again, I got to give a shout out to Forever Dying on the Hill of just always explaining away just what is simply bad writing. So, again, thank you to that for Joey. Adam, my man, making it in. What a season! Where do you think season 3 is going with little to no setup? I'm glad that you brought that up, because that factors in entirely into my point that I'm going to use to cover everything that's happened this season, the post-credit scene, and everything for the future, which is the Disney Investor Day would kind of pique my curiosity of something that had kind of been happening the rest of the season. And again, it doesn't change or deter my love of this episode at all. But AJ, I think this is going to answer your question, Chris and Pat. I'm going to be interested to hear your reactions, which is the Disney Investor Day piqued my interest of this. And this episode basically confirmed that this is officially the beginning of the Star Wars cinematic universe that they have been trying to do with the movies for the last couple of years and had failed miserably. This was a complete confirmation of that for me, where you're going to see what Mandalorian season 3 will no longer be this singular entity that everything else kind of revolves and goes through. It will simply be a part of the much larger whole. Some of them, I think the thing that this has going towards it and how they're going to get away with it is that a majority of the new shows are going to be mini-series. Like the Obi-Wan show is a mini-series. The Cassian Andor show is a mini-series. The Ahsoka show is a mini-series. A lot of that. So they're going to be like what exactly Marvel is doing, where they really are finally taking the page from this new phase of Marvel and doing these quick 6 to 7 episode, really extended movies that you're going to see these characters and storylines hop around. And if you miss a few, it's not going to deter. But if you're a fan that's following along with all of it, you're going to get the full enjoyment. That's going to make some people happy. That's going to piss off a lot of people. But this was basically confirmation of that, where, again, I'll still keep watching Mandalorian season 3, but at least now we understand that it is a part of something bigger, and it's not just the only thing that we have, and we're not just grasping straws at animated shows and stuff that came like up to like 4 or 5 years before, and I think it's smart. I think because again, to me, part of the reason why Marvel works so well is Marvel felt like a series of films that you could watch sequentially, and they did such a good job of always making it so that the next big thing was an event. I don't think that Star Wars is necessarily going to do the same thing, but it's definitely going to play off of a lot of what they're doing as far as making it, okay, at the very least, you have all your stuff in one place. You have all your stuff in one place, so you can pick and choose now what it is that you want to watch. And if you have complaints as far as you don't feel like you're getting the picture, you have everything there. That's kind of my only take as far as the effects on the galaxy this goes. Again, went a little bit more like business side than as far as the effects of the galaxy. But like I said, I'm a sucker for this universe. Whatever story they want to throw at me at this point, I'm game. I don't care. Like I'm done picking apart the intricacies of what species is what and what mysteries with the Force are what and who's going to show up and who killed who and who's. I don't give a shit about that anymore. I don't give a fuck. I just want to be entertained with lasers blasting and have some allusions to what the politics of the world are, just enough to make me understand how it's affecting the story that I'm watching in the moment. Those are the only effects in the galaxy that I care about as far as with this finale goes.
Yeah, I agree with you in regards to the whole corporate side of it. I think that makes a lot of sense. I actually really hope that's the direction they go in. I know there's a lot of speculation, and I think it's rooted in a lot of common sense and rational thought. It would be a bit unfortunate if these first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian were kind of them dipping their toes into the water and maybe they didn't have as much of a roadmap as we thought, kind of feeling things out. And then this investor day was like the big, okay, we figured it out. We know what we're doing. It's Favreau and Filoni. Let's get this bread now. And you know what? If that was the case, Matt, I hope that they do what you said and they learn from it. And because I hate this Law and Order type bullshit where we see the killer in the beginning of the episode, then they arrest him, everyone goes home and goes to sleep happy. It's stupid. I don't want that kind of TV anymore. We had decades of that kind of TV. Let's bring the Mando into the modern realm. And I do think the Mando should be the flagship show, though, of this universe. Like, for all the flaws I've had with this episode week to week, like I said, I love this show. I love it. Because I'm with you, Dom, in regards to, like, there does become a point where you just have to sit back and enjoy it. Now, I'm not going to give up as easily as I maybe just made it seem, but I do want to have fun with Star Wars. And I finally, for the first time, feel that it's in good hands.
Can I ask you one question, Christian? Because we're talking about Disney, and this is them sort of entering the streaming wars against like Netflix and HBO and all that type of stuff. And Netflix has been very aggressive about basically, doing like 2-3 seasons of shows and then kind of canceling them. Do you see that with these Star Wars shows, like The Mandalorian is going to go out with a bang next season? It's 3 seasons and you're out, and basically we got to move on to something else. Do you think that Disney's going to follow that formula? Are they basically going to push each show as far as they can, as long as there's viewers will put it out there? Or do you think they already plan on just ending The Mandalorian after next season, and just relying on the sort of push of all these different TV shows that exist?
Yeah, so I can actually keep this fairly concise and hand it over to, because I see everyone pretty much giving a reaction here to what you just said, Pat. I think it was a really good question. Here's what I think. I think that this would have been the season to end the show at, if there was ever a season to end the show at. This was not a perfect 2-season arc, but it certainly came to a point where I don't see where to go forward. Let all the Star Wars theorists on YouTube get millions of views predicting where the show's going to go next, because that's how open-ended it is. But if they do decide to keep it going, I think that I think what Disney's doing is, by announcing all of this content up front, they're being transparent with their audience. It's something Netflix doesn't do. It's something that, why did Glow get canceled after 3 seasons when we were promised a 4th and final? That was a fan favorite show, a beloved show of the platform, but Netflix had its day with it, and so the show's done. So I actually think the transparency, and then I've been saying this since episode 1 of this series, in Filoni we trust, because I feel like these dudes, quite literally, like I've said many times, were inspired to become creators because of Star Wars. Like, they've said that. So I actually, while there is so much corporatism behind it, I trust them. And I think we actually are getting transparency from Disney. I know this is crazy to hear me say, but so I'm actually not too worried about it. I just am curious to see where they go and if they will sort of do the things that I think we're kind of hoping for.
Yeah, I definitely think that As far as specifically the Mandalorian goes, again, we know obviously that the emphasis is not on long form storytelling when it comes to shows. Like, we're not gonna see, again, when Better Call Saul ends, that'll end on its 6th season, and even that is still the thing about Better Call Saul that sets it apart is that Better Call Saul is still kind of a leftover, a remnant of kind of the old school kind of anti-hero, golden age of television that we got between the late 2000s and the early 2010s. I am of the opinion that that era of television storytelling is over and done with, and I think that it's both a detriment and it isn't, because at the same time, it's like, I know a lot of people like just those, 8, 9, however many long season running storytelling, but obviously just that type of method does not lend itself to consistency overall as far as being like these really excellent in-depth stories, because you can't put that type of story into that many episodes and that many seasons. So as far as Mandalorian going on next season, me personally, I would want at least 2 more seasons with the Mandalorian. But again, if the idea to me is that we're going to kind of do what Marvel does, and where rather than announce each one of these new projects and have it be its own thing that ties into the whole, I think that would be an absolute disaster. I think the CW has pulled that off very well, but again, the CW heads have their audience members that will never, ever go away. There's a reason why Supernatural went on 15 seasons. But I think that the Disney strategy of introducing all of these shows and then kind of having each new show pick up where the previous show left off and kind of incorporate something new into the overall Star Wars, where again, it's like we could jump to the Obi-Wan show, which is set in one time period, and we could jump to the Acolyte, which is set in a completely different time period, and then we could jump to the Lando show, and then we could jump to the Cassian Andor show. And the fact that we can kind of have all these things come out boom, 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 I think that would be the best option going forward, because that to me is more in line with Star Wars than any form of kind of consistent storytelling. And the fact that we're going to get 2 movies within that as well, with Rogue Squadron and whatever Taika Waititi's going to do. It's interesting. It's kind of a new form of storytelling that I haven't seen before. And I honestly think, personally, that's the direction to go. I don't think the idea of hovering on one thing as their flagship property is the smart way to go. I think that what The Mandalorian was able to accomplish within its short lifespan so far has been incredible, to say the least. But I think that to put the emphasis on The Mandalorian over Disney Plus and the power that app has specifically within that Star Wars sub-brand is a tremendous mistake from a business standpoint. And I think that Disney's making the right decision as far as all of that goes. Those are just my thoughts.
Damn. Yeah, mic drop. Pat, since you posed the question, then we'll hit the rest of the panel. What's your take on all that?
I think there's pretty much a reason why The Mandalorian season 2 did not really set too much up for the next season. Is I think with the slate of shows and the announcements, I think they put out all these shows and they're looking for what gets the best reaction on Twitter and what gets the best reaction on the forums, and I think they're going to basically be writing these shows between now and when they start production in 2021. And basically, I think they're really being smart about it. They're floating all these shows. They're going to see how well they're doing, and then I think we're going to see some slowly, be swept under the carpet. And I think The Mandalorian, in terms of being the first show to sort of introduce this and have success and sort of be the pilot for the streaming of Star Wars, I think it's basically has proven successful, but I personally think it's going to be one of those that kind of gets swept under the rug. I don't see where this is going. Like if next season it's a spectacular bang up job and explores some different stories that we haven't seen before, it could be its own thing. But right now I think everyone's talking about how it's sort of the centralized place for this new television universe, and I think it really needs to come into its own to survive.
Well, I mean, the idea of coming into its own, at least subjective to you, because as far as objectively coming into its own, the show is the most talked about thing. So as far as just from that stance, people are watching it and they're interested as far as that goes. Again, and as far as the longevity of the story goes, again, that's yet to be determined. But again, just as far as where I go, that Disney has clearly showed their hand is that is not the sole focus of their future endeavors, It's like the show has accomplished what it is needed to, as far as getting everyone so excited for Star Wars, which is exactly what it has done. You know, so like as far as like it being like the show has to come into its own. It's like it has this is what this is now.
Yeah, but it's got to stop selling toys. It's got to stop, being the place to bring up.
But why stop selling toys if your product's popular? Why not make money along the way? If we have Favreau and Filoni, we know that they've had every opportunity to sell out up until this point. Favreau. Look at Filoni. He's had every opportunity to sell out since he made fucking Avatar back in 2005. Right? At this point, they have done us justice so much that I think we just, we need to have faith in Filoni and Favreau at this point. I do agree that what they do next will certainly determine their success from here on out. Absolutely. Well, in terms of how they go about executing what they're doing next, I guess would be the best way to put it. But in terms of Mando, what it's done is it served as a central hub for all Star Wars fans to come together and love Star Wars again. So I don't see it being swept under the rug. I see it being as the initial conversation starter to bring the conversation into a positive light again. I think what it's done is so beautiful and bring us all together and loves talking Star Wars again. If this was a conversation 3 years ago, I would have been like, whatever. Okay. Let's do it. But
can I just make a motion real quick that we could just retire the term "sell out" because it's the term has become so misconstrued. As far like guys, like you understand all the stuff that you love comes from making money and comes from these giant corporations, and the idea of selling out comes from hipsters who want to rebel against the system. Like I understand that sentiment and I'm very, very much for this sentiment. But as far as the idea of selling out when it comes to this kind of stuff, like, can we kind of reserve that for where that's really meant to be used? I guess
it's like people using the term buried these days. Oh, yeah. Somebody buried this person. Somebody buried that person. No, they may have beat them. They may have bested them, but buried.
Listen, I made radio style pop music for radio style pop music for 2 years. I think it's just creative expression can come in all different shapes and forms. That doesn't mean I can't be frustrated though with some of the things they've been doing though.
Right. But that's from a creative standpoint. I'm just talking from a monetary standpoint. It's look, thank you. Look, I'm going to pull up what Adam said. The goal of this is to make money. They do this because they love it and they make billions of dollars off of it, and Disney also makes billions of dollars off of merchandising rights. That's not going away anytime soon. That will never go away, just as far as the Disney front goes. Let's just get that out of the way right now. We're the show that's honest about this stuff. So.
I feel like it's a spectrum, though. I feel like there's a point where you're in it for the money only. You don't care about the story. You don't care about all you are focused on is making money. I don't know if it's to the point of that yet, but
I still think just that overall kind of sentiment is so misunderstood because it's
AJ, I think that an example of that in real time is this most recent Skywalker trilogy we just had.
Thank you.
Exactly.
That's a good example.
And I'm nervous. Exactly. That's why I'm nervous about this, kind of Arrowverse of Star Wars shows coming. I see that they're limited series. So that kind of makes me a little bit more hopeful, but I don't know. I'm still kind of nervous.
I think I understand where you're coming from now, AJ, as far as that whole concern. So I gotta refresh my thoughts here a second. So as far as kind of the Rise of Skywalker thing, that's an interesting case because I'm still of the opinion that JJ wrote that script under a rush job in 2 weeks in a locked room. So that's as far and then getting paid $2 billion for it, and that's ridiculous. As far as kind of that I understand but that's a very specific example of them literally needing a last minute job done and then just taking what it is that they can get. That, I will admit. But again, it's much more so on the fault of the studios. I think just JJ gets a little bit more, not crap, but definitely it's the idea of dude, he had 2 weeks to write this script. Come on. But again, it's like Adam is saying. It's the idea of it's a big difference between, I think, kind of creatively, again, at the end of the day, this is all a job. It's what Harrison Ford says. This is all a job at the end of the day, and it's all for the purpose of making money. And I think that obviously, again, we like to think as YouTubers here on YouTube that, again, they're getting their little bit of creative expression, and they are. But it's still a job at the end of the day. And so again, the idea is that you still do have obviously margins that you have to hit. Again, Thank you, Adam. You're literally speaking the words for me that I'm trying to enunciate overall.
I felt that they cared about the story a little bit less this season.
I could not disagree more with that statement. I could not disagree more with that.
Hear me out. The reason I feel that way is because they were forced to set up all these shows. They were kind of forced to set up all these spinoffs. Yes, for the purpose of making money.
Are they contractual? Oh, I'm going to be very interested to see if we can get the behind the scenes and find out if they were contractually obligated, if there were executives that specifically came down and said, hey, can you put in these characters? Or if it was a situation of where they were interested in setting up the characters without the idea of where they were going to go. And Disney got that idea and ran with it. I'm saying they're just, those are the only one of two options that you could have picked from as far as that decision goes. And I'm interested to see which of the two it is, because it's only one of those two.
Come out and say that though, Dom.
Well, will they? There are a lot of press releases for these things. There are a lot of press releases made for these things. They could not.
So
You guys
AJ,
both
you're
have good
thinking,
points, in my opinion. It's just
so
we'll never
AJ,
know
you're
for
thinking
sure.
real quick here, AJ, you're thinking that they didn't have the story quite done by the time Disney behind the scenes had these TV shows decided.
Oh, of course.
And
I feel
they
like,
almost had to mold it and formulate it last minute.
No. I feel like they had the stories done. I feel like it was all incorporated. It was all like these spinoffs and everything that was already incorporated in the script, the story, everything.
Months ago.
Yes, I agree. I think that's what it was. It's how it felt a bit forced, in my opinion.
I would tend to agree.
I can see how it could sort of dishearten and maybe even discredit some of what the Mandalorian accomplished on its own,
Yes.
making this character sort of feel like a way to segue in. For example, going back to our DC, what is it, CW network. This is a way to introduce the Flash with the crossover. Then that amazing show we all loved for 2 seasons called Legends of Tomorrow. I see both of you guys' points. I think only way we'll know, to be honest with you, is if in the Mandalorian gallery which I hope they drop right after the season, if they address it there. Think that's when we'll know, or we will never know.
Even bigger roundtable. Hopefully, Kathleen Kennedy's nowhere. I just want to hear Peyton Reed talk about the idea that he came up with for Dr. Mandible. That's the only thing that I'm interested in as far as the gallery.
Yeah. Matt, I know it's tough being at the end of the panel, dude, but take as much time as you want right now. Fill us in where your head's at with all this.
All of the time in the world.
I real quick, I just feel like this season was a stepping stone for these spinoffs. That's how I feel.
I think that's entirely tied up in the simple fact of when the investor day dropped.
Yeah. Oh, that was all included. That was
right. It was an inevitable part of it, and I do agree. I wish that we'd had some time after the show had ended in order to digest it a little bit before we got the investor day drop. But that is what it is at this point.
Matt, go ahead.
Man, I'm scared. Yeah, now you guys talking about it, I'm a bit scared of just the evil Sith Kathleen Kennedy herself. I know I don't want to be over here bashing Kathleen Kennedy. That's over drawn out already. But I just need to know: is this what Star Wars gonna be? Because I'm down for it. Okay, I'm down for it. But there's gonna be some problems with interconnecting too much, trying to connect here, and it's gonna be that MCU issue where the stories don't feel as their own. They feel like selling a trailer or just one big trailer.
That's where I disagree
with you. Of what?
On the idea of this all being interconnected. Nothing is ever going to have the continuity that the MCU had. The continuity alone from that interconnected series of stories will never be accomplished by anything else, and Star Wars knows that. I personally think that, again, each piece will not be a part of a continuing story. We're gonna get Obi-Wan, we're gonna get the Acolyte, we're gonna get Ahsoka, and none of those are going to be part of a direct continuing narrative, one piece after the other, the way that the MCU was. It's going to factor into the story of Star Wars overall. But again, I've said this before, the greatest thing about Star Wars is its inconsistency. And the fact that we have 3 separate decades soon to be 4 now with the introduction of the Old Republic worth of stories, and you could be familiar with all of them, and you could be familiar with only one decade, and that's fine. But I personally think that if Star Wars were to do that and make every bit of continuity matter as far as making every little Easter egg matter with how it falls in the timeline, I think that is ridiculous. I think that is so beyond stupid as far as the choice with which to go. And I think that it's the wrong move, and it kind of would be 1 step forward, 3 steps back as far as them kind of going back towards the mistakes they made with the movies. I think that I hope personally that they've learned from those mistakes and that they are not going to be doing that. And they are going to treat these new shows as what they will be, which is anthology shows that exist on their own while still acknowledging that they are part of the greater overall Star Wars universe, which again is something I still think that this show did magnificently. This show overall.
I think what this kind of shows right now is
it almost seems like they were doing that they're
for this season. Sure,
yeah.
I'll say sure. Overall.
Go for it,
but
yeah, take it away, man.
But I think for the future,
Yeah, no. So I think with this shows where we're at, I guess there's a bit of lag. It's all good. It happens over StreamYard. We're no strangers to that.
Yeah.
I think this shows that like we all are. It seems like we're all not 100% confident, even though this season of The Mandalorian, it seems more of us in here enjoyed it than others. Like Disney still hasn't reassured us that they can handle this monster IP yet, which is a bit upsetting and a bit concerning considering the monster drop we just got.
We're concerned that we're still all burned from the most recent trilogy, and rightfully so, but I don't know. I think worried is the wrong word. I think skeptical, certainly, as we should be of everything. But as far as worried, I'm like, bro,
skeptical, yeah.
I don't want it all at once. I only, like I said, I'm done nitpicking. I only have 2 stipulations about it going forward. I don't want it all at once. I want it in pieces so I can have one thing to enjoy at a time. That was one of the things that I hated about the Netflix shows. I would have to watch like 2 shows at a time, and they would be connecting, and it would just be annoying to keep up with because those shows were already ridiculously long as it is. Have them one at a time. Have them be its own thing. Don't try to interconnect with everything else, right? Maybe, again, have a bit part here, have a bit part there. Don't try to make it this big overall, okay, we're going to have all these 20 different shows, and they're all going to come into this one when they all go to the world between worlds and fight the spirits of Darth Revan and Bane in the Spectre world. Don't do any of that shit. Please, for the love of God. Marvel already pulled it off. I'll be amazed if they can actually pull off something like that again. Just keep it all separate and make it a goddamn event. Because say what you will about it. This episode of the Mandalorian, this season Mandalorian again, it had quarantine on its side. It was an event, and if they can keep up that.
Hey Dom, so to cut you off a little bit, basically, the main thing is they just announced 10 shows. Like they're going to be happening at the same time. You know, relatively be dropped. Week by week. What for 10 more years? We're gonna get one season.
How many years did Marvel do it? Marvel did one movie, up to 2 movies a year per year for 10 years, and they made every single one of those movies an event. Every single one. Name me one Marvel movie that wasn't an event.
These TV shows, you're telling me they announced a TV show for 2025? Like they're all going to be in production next year. They're going to come out in 22.
They will be released subsequently. One right after another from now until 2025 and probably after.
I don't know.
Dumb. Is this your speculation? Did you read this somewhere? I'm just trying to get
based off of intuition. I'm like, look, they are clearly again, everyone is still trying, like nobody's learned from Marvel. And so they're just taking their Marvel like this. It's the only thing to me that makes sense as far as the release method. Like, sure, I'm like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna release Obi-Wan, Mando season 3, Ahsoka in the same year. Like they understand that they are now gonna have competition on their own app itself. They're gonna release those at the same time and have those running subsequently at the same time with Marvel shows on Fridays? No, that's
I think so because they're competing for screen time. They're competing to keep people on their app over Netflix, over Hulu, over Amazon Video. That's kind of like the whole YouTube.
I think that's oversaturated, and I think that again, the way that I see it working is you have Star Wars on one end of the week and Marvel on the other hand, because we know for a fact that the Marvel shows for the most part have already set up their release dates as far as those things. Again, it helps that it's only 6 weeks apiece. And again, as far as having it work where you have Marvel bookending one end of the week and Star Wars at the other end of the week again, and the fact that they are going to be so short and they're only going to be 6 to 8 episodes, that helps. That helps a lot. But again, it's the fact
I kind of think we're never going to have a break. It's going to be Mando ends, and then a week goes by, then we jump into Ahsoka, and then Ahsoka ends, a week goes by.
It'll be at least 2 to 3 weeks, and that I'm glad that you brought that up. That's what I'm the most interested to see.
Enough of a break, man.
That's what I'm the most interested to see, is to see what people's tolerance are, because again, that's the one thing again that the Marvel movies had, is they were movies. You went in once, 2 hours, you were done, and then again, even in the years where they had 2 movies, there would be something like 5-6 months would pass in between. Again, the only 2 years they did the only reason they were able to do the last 3 years of having a Marvel movie in February, April, and July, or in the case of 2017 in May, July, and November, is because by that point it was Marvel was at enough of a height where they were so consistent as far as being and getting close to where they were going with Infinity War that they knew they could just throw it out. You know, Marvel had that release date schedule packed, and we'll see how that benefits them. Again, we still don't know how that's going to benefit them, but it'll certainly be interesting to see what lessons Star Wars pulls from them as far as how they're going to release their stuff. Because you're right. Look, we're going to be oversaturated no matter what. I know that. I was the first person that said that when it happened. I'm just trying to kind of like think out loud how it's going to work logistically, because again, we can't.
It's overwhelming.
Disney has made, again, we always say it's overwhelming when we hear this stuff, and they somehow never cease to not make their stuff an event. Think about it this way. Out of the 5 movies that they did in the past 5 years, the only one that wasn't an event was Solo. That's it. That's the only one that wasn't an event.
I think,
I would tend to agree, because even Rogue One felt like an event.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, these are movies that were released in theaters,
right?
Separated. This is Disney Plus. This is all on streaming. These are series.
Yes.
We're gonna wait every week to see these episodes.
And
they gotta start validating your subscription week to week.
Oh, for real, seriously.
So let me pose this. We have what? 10 shows coming out, correct?
More than that.
Okay, but let's break it down.
Star Wars alone.
Marvel and Star Wars and the Disney.
I don't want to compare.
And Jeff Goldblum.
No,
I don't.
I mean, I feel like the Star Wars fans are
Dude, it's all connected.
Shows too, right?
So let me pose this. Let's break it down for simple math here. We got 10 shows coming out. Okay, let's say on an average, each show is going to have 2 seasons, right? That's 20 fucking seasons. Okay.
I don't know.
Hold on.
I'm just
No. You've had your platform.
Let's let Ian do his point.
All right, Ian. All right, fine. 2 seasons per show.
Okay, so let's break it down like this. We still don't technically have the whole picture, I guess, of why they're choosing to do each show. So with that said, if they do release one, hopefully not consequentially right after one another, because as you've very, very awesomely pointed out, that I super agree with, we will experience some Star Wars fatigue, even the most diehard, hardcore fans. Let's be honest. With that said, I'd almost like to see this is their roadmap, maybe the next 10 years.
That's very possible. And honestly, that would make me the most happy is if we get one of these shows. Like, I think, to me, what would have been the smart decision, again, this is my take, so bear with me, but if they had said, okay, Mando season 3, you're not getting until like 2022 or 2023, and we're gonna do Obi-Wan next, and Obi-Wan is our Star Wars thing of the year. And then we wait a year, and then we get and then we wait a year, then we get Mando season 3, you know, and we keep it paid. That's what I would do, because I think Star Wars is strong enough as far as that goes, but they wouldn't want to do that because that might decrease merchandising sales for a certain point.
So you know what I'd relate it to is almost for us video game guys out there. Look what happened when video game companies started cranking out a game every year, right? Their games were shit. Nobody cared. Storyline wasn't inventive. Look at Assassin's Creed. They started putting out a game every year. It was fucking horrible, right? Nobody played their games for 5, 6, 7 years. And then all of a sudden they took a couple of years off. They changed their formula, right? Which is what Disney is ultimately doing is changing their formula.
Right.
If they do it, if they plan it out right? And technically, I love that word that I learned, roadmap, right? In terms of what they've given us. I love that word. I think they could do it well. But, and again, I'm hoping that they have confidence enough into their products, the product that they want to put out, all their shows, where they don't have to put out one like that, right? Let's make them quality. Let's spend a little extra time. Let's put a little TLC into each show, right? I think that's what I'd like to see. And again, this is all pure speculation that we're all talking here, right?
Yeah,
There's
totally.
nothing confirmed. There's nothing set in stone. So that's really something that I wanted to say was, especially as a diehard video game guy for 20 plus years, we've seen a much more successful formula with putting a little time in between your projects, building up that hype, make people want a little more. So I personally am hoping that is what they decide to do.
It's ultimately
Yeah.
going to come down to how different they can make each of their products. Because again, that's the thing that I think was probably the biggest bit of criticism that I agreed with, is that Marvel, their big claim to fame was that all their superhero movies felt different. And it's like, guys, no, you're not kidding anyone. No, they don't. They're all superhero movies. They're and they're all made by the same company. They're gonna feel the same, and we're gonna start to get that sense. Star Wars, I'd like to think that that's not going to be the case,
that's
but
true.
again, it's still all Star Wars properties made by Disney, and as creative as you get and as crazy different creators you get involved, it's still going to feel like Star Wars made by Disney. And that, to me, is where I think the fatigue comes from more so than anything else, is not necessarily diversity of projects and stories, but diversity of talent involved. And that, again, it's sad because that comes from the type of studio corporatization of modern day. That's just the movie economy that it is right now.
To speak further to that, like one thing I'm learning in school right now is like, and not that I didn't already know this, but we're really diving in and further dissecting the quarterly reports that companies need to show. I have reason to believe with 8 shows, they got plans for Star Wars every quarter, Marvel every quarter. I mean, just look at what's happening. We have WandaVision Q1. We have Falcon Winter Soldier Q2 already.
What's Q3?
Q4?
Loki's already
Q3?
pretty much confirmed for Q3.
Didn't even know that, but yeah, see, I think that's what it's going to be. So I think we are going to get overloaded. I totally agree with when you guys were like, just chill out and let us enjoy and think on The Mandalorian. Like, for as bad as Game of Thrones final season was, I at least enjoyed building up to that hype those 2 years. Like, it was fun anticipating it, but we're not going to get that. I don't think we're going to get that. And we're just going to have to deal with it.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah,
it's
the main
the
thing
movie
is,
economics of the time.
so basically, if you're doing everything by quarter and you have 10 shows in 4 quarters, you're basically saying that there has to be at least 2 shows per quarter, and then there's going to be 2 quarters that have 3 shows, and that's how you get your seasons.
That's assuming, though, how many shows they want to put out in the year. And I still don't subscribe to the opinion that it's going to be multi-season shows. I'm convinced that a majority of these shows are still going to be miniseries. I think the only other show that has the potential to be an actual other show is The Acolyte, because it's covering a completely different time period. And as far as, again, mapping it out, again, if they were to pursue the Star Wars, to pursue the Marvel model, which I don't think is the smartest decision, but if they do, they will only do 1 a quarter. There's no way in hell that they would be dumb enough to release the multiple a quarter. Or if they do, they stack up their live action with their animation and make the animation kind of sub-tier quality too, in order to beef up their live action properties, and they do the 1 per quarter. That, to me, is the only logistical way to go. I think trying to do multiple shows a tier and trying to shove all of these shows out before the year 2025 is the dumbest decision they could possibly do. That, to me, will create overload, and that, to me, I think will result in...
Well, I think each show will be targeted towards a different niche.
Sorry, what was it?
No, I was basically just going to say that I think each show is going to be targeted towards a different audience base. You're going to have kids shows, you're going to have teen shows, you're going to have adult shows, whatever. So maybe that's how they segment it out.
And they're doing that. They announced all those like Moana series, and they announced the Zootopia series. They're covering all their bases in regards to that. Matt, dude, what's your take on all this, man? It's tough being the last guy on the panel. I don't want to leave you out here.
No, it's all good. Right now, of course, I'm having issues with my connection. It's a bit laggy, but I get it. But this is a business. At the end of the day, they might run it off that of becoming a more of a interconnected universe in some way. Not surely Mandalorian. I think Obi-Wan Obi-Wan might be something else. This might be something else, but it could be oversaturated. I get you guys' point. And do we really need diversity as much to the extent of not having it to feel like Star Wars? Because we had a movie, of course, Last Jedi was trying to be different from, or not different, in a way different from what we've seen before. And people shitted on it. Quite frankly, they shit on it. Will people accept, whether Star Wars fans accept kind of diverse more shows in this universe? That's
the Last Jedi thing is I still don't subscribe to that theory. Again, it's at the end of the day, say what you will about what happened story wise, but it's still a Disney movie made by Star Wars, and it didn't feel like anything else different. So
yeah, I feel that, Dom. We could go on for hours, I think, but
could.
should we do our star ratings of the episode?
Yeah, I
and
was about to
jump out of here?
say, we can go on for another hour, but I don't want this episode to be 3 hours long. So in order to wrap this up, first off, I just wanted to say again, thanks to everyone who tuned in for the last 8 weeks. It's still crazy. Again, we were able to roll into this right after our Lovecraft Country finale, and I'd like to think that this finale has so far completely surpassed that finale. That one was more so just a jokey, fun one, just being like, oh, thank God that show's over. This one, we're like... I get that this old finale went much differently than I thought it was going to. But again, I'm not at all disappointed with the takes that came out of this. As far as our overall ratings and reviews goes, here's the thing. I'm going to sound like a fool with this, and none of what I say is going to make sense, but screw it. I've wanted to give something 5 stars this whole goddamn year, and I haven't been able to really, or I probably did, but I just already forgot because that's just how this year went. And I'll certainly admit this is not objectively the best episode of this season, but this was my favorite episode of the season. I just had an absolute blast. I wasn't thinking about the implications of the universe. I wasn't thinking about all of the future Disney Star Wars shows. Right there in the moment, I was having a fun time watching a Jedi take out some droids with a lightsaber, watching some dope-ass Star Wars, and just getting some enjoyment and some satisfaction from a galaxy far, far away. I'm giving this 5 out of 5 stars. I don't give a shit. Come at me. Mic drop on the couch.
Damn, all right, Pat. What was your DEF CON? For those of you who don't know, Pat, explain how you've been rating this show week to week.
So basically, I just do a DEF CON meter. If we ever get to DEF CON 1, we're basically canceling, the Mandalorian and putting on the Great British Bake Off. We haven't gotten like below 3, but I think we're hovering around 4. And what really, this investor day is what kind of has me conflicted, because I want to know how this universe is going to expand into the television realm. I'm interested, but it's the sort of classic marketing of like, oh, hey, we have all this stuff coming on, but we're not going to give you any details yet, because the corporation is waiting and watching the reaction of YouTubers, people on Twitter and social media. They're trying to see what to invest the most in, and it's just the reality of the world for sure. So I think with all this uncertainty of like, hey, we're offering you up this buffet of choices, and we're only going to refill the trays with the most. I don't know if I necessarily like, that pathway going forward. So it has me really, really, cautious. And so I think for this whole Star Wars TV universe, I would say we're at like DEF CON 2. For this particular episode, I would say I enjoyed the action. I thought it was stellar from start to finish. And I think, the season ended the way it started, pretty spectacular episode. It didn't feel like a season finale, so I'm just going to say 4 out of 5 stars. It's basically, it's pretty good, but didn't really end with the implications I was hoping for.
I think that between this and The Boys, they need to kind of retitle these finales as being season finales / backdoor pilots, because there was resolution, but there was a lot more jump starting than it was. Like Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame was a series finale and 4 different backdoor pilots. Ian,
I'd be a little less frustrated if they did that. That's
yeah, for sure. I know, but again, this is the way, Chris. Ian, star rating.
This is the way indeed. You know what? I'm gonna go on a smaller scale out of 5 here, and I'm gonna base it off of 2 things. One, how much it made sense in terms of one of our topics tonight, the effect on the galaxy. 2, on, my initial reaction of watching it, midday through work, took away some of the bullshit of the craziness that is, right now. Out of 5, and I'm going to go, right in between here. I'd probably hit it at a 4.8, man. Again, there were some gripes, that I had about it. Me, AJ, and Matt certainly dove well into that tonight. But in terms of how it made me feel in that moment, that was something special in itself. And again, it was something AJ brought up too. We knew it was Luke, but we didn't know it was Luke. And then we saw that green saber come out, and I'm like, oh, black gloved hand, that's Luke, baby. I have to go with a higher rating here again of how it made me feel initially in the original watching earlier today, and again I had watched it already a couple times today. And in terms of how its effect on the galaxy, I'd put it at a 4-point question mark because we don't know yet. Many things that I'd like to know and like to see, and you know what? At the end of the day, it's brought us Star Wars fans together on a much more common level. It's made us more hopeful for the future. Most of us anyway. I know Pat has his own gripes about the show, but as a whole, I do think they did a pretty good job. So I'd have to go, high fours, man, 4.7 and above.
Sweet. AJ, dude.
Well put, and that's fair. I
That's fair.
think what you said, and I kind of agree. This episode, it had some heightened emotions. There was times where I was like at the edge of my seat, like yeah, and then like there were times where I wanted to, well up a little bit because they're departing. Grogu and Mando are departing and things like that. It had a range of emotions in this episode, definitely. And to me, I would have to disagree. I do feel like it felt like a season finale. It was just kind of too epic to be just any other episode, in my opinion. But like I said, after maybe a half hour, 45 minutes after watching the episode, I got to thinking about the future of the universe and what Mandalorian really is, why I was drawn to it in the first place, and how it affects my thoughts. And I have to go with like a 4 out of 5. If it didn't feel kind of gimmicky to me, it would be a 5 for sure. But the fact that Luke was in it, I didn't really want Luke. In the moment, it was amazing. But after a while, after it sat with me, I said, so I have to give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, you make good cases there.
Matt.
Yeah, Matt, of course.
All right, here I go. I'm gonna go. Okay, so in particular, this episode was well directed. The writing was it was okay. It was good. It was solid. It never felt dull, and the pacing always kept up with itself, and it just always had me on my edge of my seat, as AJ said. And I will, man, they, I don't know, man. Mando, he hold his weight on this episode, and I think he has in this whole entire, in some way of this season. But they put respect on Luke. I know we talked about it a lot, how epic it was and stuff. But they put respect, the icon Luke. Just I had a smile on my face. This is the journeys I want to see of this full-grown Luke Skywalker after post-return. And that itself just made me just love the episode. I'm just so into those moments. Those moments, giddy butterflies I get cannot be unmatched with, just a good, solid season finale. This was the giddy butterfly moment, and I just can't be any happier being a Star Wars fan. And I'm, as Dom said, I think I'm intrigued what they're gonna do, but a bit scared in a way what the future of this franchise holds. But I'm curious, but I'm all in for it right now until they backstab me again, and then they'll backstab me again. But yeah,
I hear that. Yeah, no, I think
Did
that
you give a
this
star rating?
Oh no, I didn't. I'm about to give.
Oh,
mine
yeah,
in
Did Matt give a star rating?
Oh,
Okay,
no, I
yeah.
don't think you did. Yeah, sorry about that, Matt. Go for it.
Yeah. I'm gonna go 5. I'm gonna go 5. I think over
Right.
time it might, I might find some flaws, but I'm gonna go 5. I'm gonna go 5.
Right,
I
I'm
gotta
not
be
the only
the fun one here.
I'm not
Nice.
the only one.
Good catch, AJ. I'm glad we got that. Yeah, no, for me, this is a tough one to rate because the problems are so minute, but then it's when you think about it in regards to the bigger picture, they're not so small. So with that being said, I do have to be honest when I say it was an enjoyable episode. I learned to not only like this episode, I learned to love it, and I'm really all for The Mandalorian now. So I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 because there was a lot of emotional moments there with a puppet who I don't think I'm the one who hated it the most. I think Pat has clearly taken that mantle and ran with it.
Yes, of
But,
course.
when Dom and I were speaking about it season 1 on our show here, certainly I was the Pat role in regards to that. And so for the fact that I almost shed a damn tear because this puppet touched his face and it just meant so much, and it was what was shown, not said. Yeah, exactly. That was a moment that I didn't expect to get out of this show. So 4 out of 5, but I am unfortunately still hesitant. Like they finally had me at ease, but now I'm like back to where I was. Like, how are they going to mess this up? So I'm just waiting to be burned again. But season 2 did not burn me, and it was a blast doing this show week to week. Thank you guys for being our guests. Pat, you were an amazing third co-host, dude. This was quite the ride, hanging with you each week and getting your takes on it. It's we did it, guys. This was awesome.
It's certainly going to be fun. Again, thanks to everyone who was there for us every single week, even the one week that I was not able to make it. It's just been such a treasure. I'm so glad. I always wanted to do something like this just in some capacity on YouTube, but the fact that we're here with all these people now is insane. And again, these are not going away anytime soon. We're going to be covering all the Disney content going forward, Star Wars, Marvel. We're going to be covering all of it. Whether we like it or not, it gets us views. So we got to have to keep doing it. We got to have no choice. And don't worry. Here's the thing, though. Unlike the rest of the pop culture sphere, we won't completely fall on you with Disney. When Succession comes back, we will absolutely be doing a recap of that. I've also got a Game of Thrones recap show that I'll be doing next year, kind of similar to what The Ringer did this year with The Wire. I want to do that to Game of Thrones. I want to examine how it kind of just disappeared from the pop culture status after it ended. And so I hope that all of you will join me on that show when that comes back. Again, we're called Talkin TV, so we're going to be talking about TV. But again, the other thing to look forward to next year, we're going to have a lot of movies to talk about, people. There is going to be a lot of movies dropped between the streaming services and whatever else they can get through on VOD. And if theaters do end up coming back, yeah, that's right, Joe. We are sellouts. But guess what? Guess what? You know what sellouts do? You know what sellouts do? They make money. That's what they do. Exactly. They make them that cash money, baby.
You've succumbed to the dark side, Dom.
Exactly. We have officially
Yeah,
fallen.
Honestly,
Look
we
at
don't
the
watch
world,
it either way. We might as well cover it. Let's be
And you know
honest.
what? Guess what? I hate that the internet ever made that into a negative aspect of the idea of shilling out for Disney, because guess what? If Disney's willing to pay me $5 million a video to talk positively about them, I will happily do it.
Well, I enjoy trash
happily
Disney
get on your
every
knees
chance I
there,
can get.
Dom.
It's become quite my favorite pastime.
But what I'm saying is I'm throwing down, I'm taking shots at the internet trying to put people down for wanting to make money. That's what I'm
we do here.
No, we get it. We get it. You're a closet Disney freak. We get it. all right?
That was the shout out right there. Look,
You
this
know
was
what we
the me
also
against
do
the
here,
world.
though? We also do things that challenge the YouTube zeitgeist,
That is
man.
true.
We have a
That
huge
is
event
true.
tomorrow night that I'm
We
so
are-
stoked for.
I'm not going to say it's something that has never been done on YouTube before, as shown earlier this year, but it's definitely the first time that we're doing it, and therefore that's why I think that Strike the Screenplay, when that premieres tomorrow, is going to be one of the greatest things just ever in existence on YouTube. People, again, tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this channel. Again, if you want one last bit of Star Wars for the year, I would heavily recommend tuning in on the 1-year anniversary of that garbage dumpster fire Rise of Skywalker. We'll hopefully be doing the better version of that, is basically the moral of that story. Again, myself, Chris, Pat, and Ian will all be on tomorrow, along with oh my god, I almost just did it again, Ziana and Adelia of the Basic Cinephile, Joe of Guy at the Movies, Sean of Movie Burr, Sean of Math Teacher Movies, so many, Rose,
Luke was in the chat here earlier.
Luke, who's in the chat, will be
Yeah,
playing
it's gonna
Luke
be
Skywalker himself.
insane.
Kristen and Mac of Mac Movie Reviews, Brandon of Brando Critic, all of the people that we've tried, at least for the most part, to get in touch with, that we have met with on YouTube so far this year, will be
It's gonna
on
be
with
a
us.
big old goon squad party.
And we better get as many people in the comments as possible. We unfortunately will not be able to read the comments during the actual script reading process, but we will do our best.
After.
We will do our best to hit the most of them afterwards. Again, this is going to be a long one, to say the
Wait to
least.
bring
So,
up. Yeah, it's gonna be a long one. We're so excited. It's kind of like our end of the year community celebration. Like, you know, listen, guys, we we kid about like the reasons why we do things, but don't ever get it confused why we're here and putting countless hours that we really are having to find throughout the week because we love this so much. Like this is what's fun in my life right now. This is what like gives me purpose. I'm sure Dom as well. So we just want to give back to you guys and always challenge you with new fun stuff that we think
absolutely.
of.
And before we wanted to get out of here, I just wanted to roll around the whole panel again. Thank you guys for showing up. Thank you, Pat, for coming in and co-hosting this with us for these last couple of weeks. So real quick on the panel, quick rapid fire, make it quick, people. Starting with Ian, where can the good people find you? Drop your socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of them.
Yes, Instagram and Twitter. That is Mr. Wonderful _ITH in celebration of Paul Wonderful, Mr. Orndorff. Yes, at Mr. Wonderful _ITH. That is Twitter and Instagram. Facebook, you can find me at Ian Hamilton, as Adam Summer already did earlier tonight. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate that. Other than that, folks, again, thank you for having me, guys. Catch me tomorrow on the script reading for Duel of the Fates. I will be Chancellor Hux. We'll be having a great time with it, and can't wait. Looking forward to it.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, man.
All right. AJ, where can the good people find you?
Yeah, man. Thank you again for having me on here. I love being a part of the Talkin TV family. And so you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Twitch. AJ Reacts To. I react to movies, trailers, music, food, all kinds of stuff. So if you're into that kind of stuff, come by and check me out. And once again, thank you.
All right. Matt, where can the good people find you?
You can guys go find me at Twitter. Oh, first of all, no. Shout out to these guys, man. Shout out to Chris. Shout out to Dom. Shout out to Pat. Shout out to Ian. Shout out to AJ for coming out here and showing their love of Star Wars. These guys know what they're talking about. And, you guys need to support these guys. These guys are a lot of fun. You guys can go follow me on Twitter at Matt Basic. Just Matt Basic. That's it. What, X. And then you guys can go follow me on YouTube, Basic Entertainment. I cover movies. I cover reactions of trailers, music reactions with my friends, sometimes gaming, and lots of fun. And I'm here to learn and keep on growing as a person in this interesting.
Yeah. Well said, guys. This was awesome. Thank you again. Everyone's links will be in the description below. Please go give them a subscription to follow, all that jazz,
Yeah, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Talkin TV Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Click the like, click the comment, click everything, people. If it's on the screen, just click it. You guys know what to do. You've been on YouTube.
Like I accidentally clicked AJ out. I'm sorry about that, AJ.
Again, tune in to the screenplay tomorrow. Tune into our Office community debate next Monday. We've got our community tier rankings next Wednesday, and we're going to close out the year with our podcast discussing Soul and Wonder Woman 84, the first big movies that will be dropped directly on a streaming service. We will see all of you guys there for all these episodes. So for myself, from Chris, from Pat, from AJ, from Matt, from Ian, this is the way indeed. We'll see you guys next time. Peace. Yeah.